For the next few minutes, I want you to notice something about your English that most learners never notice. You are not struggling because you have nothing to say. You are struggling because the full thought in your mind becomes smaller the moment you try to speak it. So while you listen to this audiobook, do not listen passively. Every time you hear a sentence that sounds like something you would say, pause, repeat it aloud, and connect it to your own life. That is how this audiobook becomes practice, not just information. Stay until the final chapter, because each chapter will build one piece of the skill: how to expand an idea, explain what you really mean, recover when the perfect word is missing, and finally make your English sound more like you. If you have ever thought, "I know exactly what I mean, but I cannot say it in English," subscribe to English Mindset Academy. This audiobook is for you. Let's begin with Express Yourself in English. Chapter 1. Why your real thoughts become smaller in English. You may know far more English than your conversations show. That is one of the strangest stages of learning. Someone asks you a simple question like, "What did you think about it?" And inside your mind, the answer is already there. You remember what happened, what surprised you, what you liked, what bothered you, and why it mattered. But when you speak, all of that becomes, "It was good," or "I didn't like it." Then the conversation moves on, and a few seconds later you think, "That is not what I really wanted to say." This happens because speaking under pressure often pushes learners toward the safest English they can produce quickly. Your mind may contain a rich idea, but your mouth reaches for the easiest sentence available. The goal of this chapter is to stop that shrinking. You do not need to begin with advanced vocabulary. You need to learn how to open the thought after the first sentence appears. Suppose someone asks, "How was your trip?" Your first answer may be, "It was good." Do not stop there. Ask yourself one small question. What exactly was good about it? Now your answer grows. "It was good because I finally had time to relax." Ask again. What made that important? "It was good because I finally had time to relax. I had been working continuously for several weeks, so being somewhere quiet helped me feel normal again." The English is still simple, but now the thought sounds like you. That is the first lesson. Do not search for a bigger word when what you really need is a bigger idea. Many learners believe they sound simple because their vocabulary is not advanced enough. Sometimes that is true. But very often, they sound simple because they stop speaking before the thought has had time to develop. Take this sentence, "I don't like my job." That may be completely true, but it tells the listener almost nothing. Now ask, "What part don't I like?" "I don't like my job because everything feels rushed." Then, "Why does that bother me?" "I don't like my job because everything feels rushed, and I rarely have enough time to do one task properly before another one arrives." Then, "How does that affect me?" "By the end of the day, I feel exhausted even when I have not finished the work I wanted to complete." Nothing here requires extraordinary English. You simply allowed the thought to continue. This is one of the most useful habits you can build. Whenever you produce a short answer, do not immediately judge it. Expand it. If you say, "I was nervous," ask, "Why?" "I was nervous because everyone in the room seemed more experienced than me." Ask, "What happened because of that?" "I started speaking too quickly and forgot part of what I wanted to explain." Ask, "What did you learn?" "I realized that I need to slow down at the beginning, instead of trying to sound confident immediately." Now "I was nervous" has become a real experience. The same method works with opinions. Varia was, "I think social media is useful." That is only the surface. Why? Varia would, "I think social media is useful because it gives people access to information quickly." Can you give an example? For example, someone learning English can find teachers, pronunciation practice, and real conversations without living in an English-speaking country. Is there another side? However, it becomes a problem when people spend more time consuming information than actually using it. Now you sound thoughtful, not because the grammar is difficult, but because the idea has structure. A powerful speaking habit is to think in layers. Layer 1 is the basic answer. Layer 2 is the reason. Layer 3 is the detail. Layer 4 is the example. Layer 5 is the personal meaning. You do not need all 5 every time. Sometimes 2 are enough, sometimes 3. But if your English always stops at layer 1, your real personality stays hidden. Try this with a simple question. What kind of people do you trust? A small answer, Honest people. Now expand. I trust people who are honest, especially when honesty is uncomfortable. Add a reason. It is easy to be honest when nothing is at risk, but I pay attention to what someone does when telling the truth may make them look bad. Add a personal meaning. That is when I feel I can trust them. Again, the English is not overly complicated. The thought is simply complete. You should also stop believing that every sentence must sound perfect before you say it. Perfection makes learners compress their thoughts. You have a long idea, but you think, I am not sure I can say all of this correctly. So you replace it with, yes, no, maybe, it was fine, I don't know. These are safe sentences, but they slowly create a false version of your English level. The listener begins hearing only the language you feel safest producing, not the language you are capable of building. Instead, give yourself permission to develop the thought with simple structures. Use phrases like, the main reason is, what I mean is. For example, the difficult part is, what surprised me was, the reason I say that is, another thing is. These phrases are valuable because they buy your mind time and give the next idea a direction. Suppose you are asked, why do you want to improve your English? Instead of, for my future, try, the main reason is that I want more independence. I do not want to understand an idea in my mind, but depend on someone else to express it for me. Then continue. For example, I want to handle work conversations, travel situations, and important decisions in English without feeling that my personality becomes smaller. That sounds much more personal. Another important skill is replacing general words with specific meaning. Learners often depend heavily on words like good, bad, nice, difficult, interesting, problem, thing. These words are useful, but if they carry every thought, your English loses detail. Instead of, the meeting was bad, say, the meeting felt unproductive because we discussed the same problem for an hour without making a decision. Instead of, the movie was interesting, say, the movie kept changing what I believed about the main character, so I stayed curious until the end. Instead of, learning English is difficult, say, the hardest part of learning English for me is not understanding. It is producing the language quickly enough during real conversations. Notice what changed. You did not replace bad with a complicated synonym. You explained what bad meant. That is often more powerful than advanced vocabulary. When you cannot find the perfect adjective, describe the experience. If you cannot remember awkward, say, I felt uncomfortable because neither of us knew what to say next. If overwhelming disappears, say, there were too many things happening at once, and I could not decide what to focus on. If you forget disappointed, say, I expected something better, so the result affected me more than I thought it would. This skill immediately makes your English more flexible. Your meaning is no longer trapped behind one missing word. Now try a simple exercise. Choose one sentence you often say. My day was busy. Ask 4 questions. Why was it busy? What happened? How did it affect you? What was the most difficult part? You might produce, my day was busy because several things happened at the same time. I had work to finish, 2 calls I did not expect, and an important task that took longer than planned. The hardest part was changing my attention constantly because I never felt fully focused on one thing. That answer is much richer than, my day was busy, yet the grammar remains manageable. This is how you should practice expressing yourself. Do not only memorize more sentences, practice expanding the sentences you already know. Take, I am tired, turn it into, I am tired because I have been mentally busy all day, even though I was not doing physical work. Take, I am happy, turn it into, I am happy because something I had been worried about finally worked out better than I expected. Take, I disagree, turn it into, I disagree because I think the idea sounds good in theory, but it may create a different problem when people actually use it. Each time the first sentence opens a door, your job is to walk through it. There is another reason your thoughts become smaller. You may be translating the complete idea from your first language and trying to reproduce it with the same complexity in English. That can create enormous pressure. Instead, rebuild the thought in English from the meaning outward. Do not ask, how do I translate this exact sentence? Ask, what is my main point? Then give the reason, then add the detail. For example, perhaps your original thought is complex. You want to explain that a person disappointed you not because they made one mistake, but because they repeatedly promised to change and never did. Do not search for one perfect translated sentence. Build it. I was not upset because of one mistake. What bothered me was that the same thing happened several times. Each time, the person promised it would change, so eventually I stopped trusting the promise. Clear, natural, complete. You express the real meaning without needing an advanced sentence. This is the skill you are building throughout this audiobook. Your English should become large enough to carry the thoughts you already have, and that begins with one simple rule. Never assume your first sentence is your complete answer. The first sentence is often only the entrance. Open it, add the reason, add the detail, give the example, explain what it meant to you. Do this regularly, and something important will change. You will stop thinking, "My English is too simple." Instead, you will begin realizing, "I can say much more with the English I already know." That is where real expression begins. Not when you know every word, but when you stop letting one small sentence represent an entire thought. Chapter 2. Stop waiting for the perfect word. One of the fastest ways to destroy your English flow is to believe that every idea has only one correct word. You are speaking well, the sentence is moving, and then suddenly one word disappears. Maybe you want to say overwhelmed, reliable, awkward, efficient, or disappointed. You know the meaning clearly, but the exact English word does not arrive, and then everything stops. Your eyes move away, your voice becomes weaker. You begin searching inside your mind, and the other person waits while one missing word slowly becomes more important than the entire message. This is where many learners make a serious mistake. They believe, "If I cannot remember that word, I cannot continue." But strong speakers do something completely different. They do not depend on one word to carry the whole meaning. If the word disappears, they explain the idea another way and keep the conversation alive. That is the skill you are going to build in this chapter. Suppose you want to say, "I felt overwhelmed," but overwhelmed disappears. Do not stop. Say, "I had too many things happening at the same time, and I could not decide what to focus on first." You did not use the perfect word, but you expressed the meaning perfectly well. Suppose you want to say, "He is very reliable," but reliable does not come. You can say, "He is the kind of person you can depend on. If he promises something, he usually does it." Now the listener understands even more than they would from one adjective. Suppose you forget awkward. You can say, "The situation felt uncomfortable because neither of us knew what to say." Suppose you forget generous. Say, "She always shares what she has and helps people without expecting anything back." Suppose you forget efficient. Say, "It saves time and helps you finish the work with less effort." This is not weak English, this is flexible English. And flexibility is one of the most important signs of real speaking ability. The goal is not to remember every word immediately. The goal is to make sure one missing word never has the power to stop the whole conversation. A very useful habit is to ask yourself, "Can I explain this idea using easier English?" That question changes everything. Instead of trying harder to remember one word, you begin searching for meaning. For example, maybe you want to say, "The meeting was unproductive." If the word unproductive disappears, ask, "What actually happened?" You might say, "We talked for a long time, but we did not make any real decision." That is clear. Maybe you want to say, "The instructions were confusing." If confusing does not come, the instructions were not clear, and different people understood them in different ways. Again, the meaning survives. This skill is called paraphrasing, but do not think of it as an advanced classroom technique. It is something you should use in almost every real conversation. Paraphrasing means, if one road to the meaning is blocked, take another road. You can do this in several simple ways. The first way is through definition. If you forget a word, explain what it means. Suppose you forget neighbor. You could say, "The person who lives next to my house." Forget deadline, the final time when the work must be finished. Forget refund, the money a company gives back after you return something. Forget appointment, a planned time when you meet someone, usually for work or a service. You may not always need these words, but practicing the skill teaches your brain an important lesson. A missing word does not mean a missing message. The second way is through example. Sometimes an example can explain the word faster than a definition. Suppose you forget responsible. Say, for example, If something goes wrong, he does not blame other people. He accepts that it was his job to handle it. Forget patient. For example, she can explain the same thing several times without becoming angry. Forget competitive. For example, he always wants to win, even when the activity is only for fun. The example carries the meaning. The third way is through opposite meaning. If the word you need does not come, explain what it is not. Suppose you forget temporary. Say, it is not permanent. It will only continue for a short time. Forget flexible. It is not fixed. It can change depending on the situation. Forget confident. He does not seem nervous or unsure when he speaks. This technique is powerful because sometimes the opposite word is easier to remember than the original word. The fourth way is through function. Ask, what does this thing do? Forget charger. It is the thing I use to put power back into my phone. Forget remote control. It is the small device I use to change the television without touching it. Forget filter. It removes unwanted things from water, air, or information. You may sound less precise for a moment, but the conversation continues, and that matters more. The fifth way is through category plus detail. Suppose you forget cucumber. You can say, it is a green vegetable that people often put in salads. Forget hammer. It is a tool you use to hit nails. Forget pharmacy. It is a shop where you buy medicine. This method is especially useful for objects and places. Now let us move beyond single vocabulary words. Sometimes the problem is not one missing word. Sometimes you know the idea, but you cannot find the exact sentence you want. You may think, I know what I mean, but I do not know how to say it correctly. Do not wait for the perfect sentence. Break the meaning into smaller pieces. Suppose you want to express this idea. You are disappointed with a friend because they repeatedly cancel plans at the last moment. Maybe the perfect sentence does not come. Start simply. I am a little disappointed with my friend. Then explain. We make plans, but he often cancels them very late. Then add the reason. The problem is not that he cancels sometimes. The problem is that it keeps happening. Then add the personal meaning. It makes me feel like my time is not important. That is a complete thought. You did not need one beautiful sentence. You built the meaning step by step. This is a major skill for learners, because complex thoughts are often easier to express in several simple sentences than one difficult sentence. Another useful technique is the three-way explanation. When a word disappears, train yourself to use one of these three routes. What is it? What does it do? What is an example? Take the word motivation. What is it? It is the feeling that makes you want to continue working towards something. What does it do? It helps you take action even when the result is still far away. Example? For example, someone may study English every day because they want to work abroad. Now you understand the word from three directions. This exercise also helps you learn new vocabulary more deeply. Do not only memorize. Motivation = desire to act. Ask yourself, how would I explain this word if I forgot it? That question turns passive vocabulary into speaking vocabulary. Here is another powerful exercise. Choose 5 words you recently learned. For each word, write or say 3 simpler explanations. For example, exhausted. I am extremely tired. I have almost no energy left. I feel like I need to stop and rest. Reliable. You can depend on this person. They usually do what they promise. You can trust them to handle something. Frustrated. You keep trying, but nothing is working. You feel angry because progress is not happening. You want something to change, but it keeps staying the same. Now close the list and speak about a real situation using the meaning, not necessarily the original word. This teaches you something more useful than memorization. It teaches you how to survive when memory is imperfect. You should also stop feeling embarrassed when you need to explain around a missing word. Many learners think, if I describe the word, the listener will know my English is weak. But real communication is not a vocabulary test. Even fluent speakers sometimes forget words, change sentences, simplify ideas, or explain something differently. The important skill is not never getting stuck. The important skill is knowing what to do when you do get stuck. Instead of saying, sorry, my English is bad, I forgot the word. Try, I cannot remember the exact word, but I mean, then explain. For example, I cannot remember the exact word, but I mean someone who always keeps their promises. The listener may immediately say, reliable? And now you have recovered the word naturally. That moment is useful learning. You heard the word exactly when you needed it, connected to a real meaning. That memory may become stronger than memorizing it from a list. You can also use phrases that give you time without killing the conversation. What I mean is, the best way I can explain it is something like, I am trying to describe. I do not remember the exact word, but, in other words, these phrases are not signs of weakness, they are speaking tools. Imagine someone asks, why did you leave your old job? You want to say toxic work environment, but the phrase does not come. You can still say, the environment was becoming very unhealthy for me. There was too much tension, people blamed each other constantly, and I felt stressed even before arriving at work. You communicated the meaning clearly. In fact, the explanation may be more interesting than the original phrase. This is why advanced vocabulary should never become a prison. A difficult word can make your English more precise, but it should never become the only doorway to the idea. Simple English should always remain available as your backup system. That backup system gives you confidence, because now, when one word disappears, your mind does not say, stop. It says, explain it. That single change can make your conversations much smoother. You can practice this with the forbidden word exercise. Choose a common word and pretend you are not allowed to use it. For example, choose happy. Now explain happiness without saying happy. I feel really good because something I hoped for finally happened. Choose expensive. It costs much more money than I expected. Choose boring. It did not keep my attention, and I kept waiting for it to finish. Choose confident. I feel comfortable speaking without constantly worrying about mistakes. This exercise forces your English to become flexible. Another powerful practice is the 30-second rescue. Choose one word. Imagine you suddenly forgot it during a conversation. Give yourself 30 seconds to explain it in English without stopping. For example, word jealous. You might say, it is a feeling you have when someone has something you want, especially when you are afraid they have something better than you. You do not need a dictionary perfect definition. You need understandable meaning. Try. Word habit. It is something you do regularly, often without thinking very much about it. Word opportunity. It is a chance to do something useful or improve your situation. Word embarrassed. It is the uncomfortable feeling you get when you think other people noticed something you did wrong. This exercise makes forgotten words less frightening because you begin trusting your ability to describe. Now apply the same skill to real speaking. Imagine you are talking about your English learning. You want to say, my progress has been inconsistent, but inconsistent disappears. Say, my progress has not been the same every week. Sometimes I improve quickly, and sometimes I feel like nothing changes. That is excellent communication. You want to say, I am becoming more independent, but independent does not come. Say, I am starting to handle more situations by myself, without needing someone to translate or help me. Again, the meaning survives. This is the mindset you need. Protect the meaning, not the word. The word is only one tool. The meaning is the real goal. From today, when a word disappears, do not search for it forever. Give yourself 2 or 3 seconds. If it does not come, change the route. Define it. Describe it. Give an example. Use the opposite. Explain what it does. Break the idea into smaller sentences. Keep moving. The more often you practice this, the less frightened you will become by forgotten vocabulary. And something surprising will happen. Because you are no longer panicking, the missing word may actually return faster. Your mind works better when the entire conversation is not waiting for one perfect answer. So remember this whenever your English suddenly stops because of one missing word. You do not need the perfect word to express the perfect meaning. If the first word does not come, find another road. If the second road is blocked, explain the idea. If the sentence feels difficult, make it simpler, but never abandon the thought. Your English becomes powerful when one forgotten word can no longer silence everything you wanted to say. Chapter 3. Turn one small sentence into a complete thought. A surprising number of English learners do not have a speaking problem because they lack words. They have a speaking problem because they stop too early. Someone asks, "How was your weekend?" You answer, "It was good." Someone asks, "What do you think about working from home?" You say, "I think it is better." Someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" You answer, "For my future." Every answer is correct. Nothing is wrong with the grammar. The problem is that the sentence ends before the real thought has even begun. Inside your mind, "It was good" may contain an entire story. Maybe you finally met a friend you had not seen for years. Maybe you stayed home after an exhausting week and enjoyed doing absolutely nothing. Maybe something unexpected happened that changed your mood completely. The thought is there, but English receives only the smallest possible version of it. This chapter is about changing that habit. You are going to learn how to take one simple English sentence and naturally grow it into a complete thought without searching for complicated vocabulary, without memorizing long answers, and without putting yourself under unnecessary pressure. The first thing you need to understand is that longer speaking does not require longer sentences. Many learners hear "express yourself fully" and imagine enormous sentences filled with advanced grammar. They try to connect 5 ideas with although, however, therefore, whereas, and despite, and halfway through the sentence they lose control. That is not the goal. The goal is to build one clear idea at a time. Instead of trying to create one perfect 25-word sentence, create 3 or 4 simple sentences that move naturally from one thought to the next. Suppose someone asks, "Do you enjoy your job?" Your first thought is, "Yes, I like it." Good, keep it. Now add a reason. "Yes, I like it because I have a lot of freedom." Now add one detail. "I can organize most of my work by myself instead of waiting for someone to tell me what to do." Now add something personal. "That matters to me because I work better when I feel responsible for my own decisions." You have now turned "Yes, I like it" into "Yes, I like it because I have a lot of freedom. I can organize most of my work by myself instead of waiting for someone to tell me what to do. That matters to me because I work better when I feel responsible for my own decisions." The vocabulary is not dramatically more difficult. The difference is that the listener can finally see your thought. This is the skill you need to practice. When your first sentence appears, do not treat it as the final answer. Treat it as the doorway. Walk through it. You can use a simple mental pattern: point, reason, detail, example, meaning. You do not have to use every part every time. But learning this pattern gives your mind somewhere to go after the first sentence. Let us take a very simple answer. "I am tired." That is the point. Why? "I am tired because I did not sleep well last night." That is the reason. What happened? "I woke up several times and had difficulty falling asleep again." That is the detail. How is it affecting you? "So today I can work, but I have to concentrate much harder than usual." That is the meaning or result. Now the listener understands your experience. Try another. "I like learning English." Why? "I like learning English because it gives me access to more people and information." Detail: there are so many videos, books, courses, and conversations that become available when you understand English. Personal meaning: for me, that makes English feel less like a school subject and more like a tool that can change what I am able to do. Again, you did not need extraordinary vocabulary. You needed development. This is important because many learners spend years trying to upgrade their English by learning harder words when the real weakness is that they never develop the thought. Imagine 2 learners answering the question, "What do you think about social media?" Learner 1 says, "Social media is very beneficial because it facilitates communication and provides numerous opportunities." The vocabulary sounds advanced, but the thought is still thin. Learner 2 says, "I think social media can be useful, especially for people who live far from family or need access to information quickly. For example, someone learning English can follow teachers from another country without traveling anywhere. But I also think it becomes unhealthy when people stop using it intentionally and begin checking it every few minutes without thinking." The second learner may use simpler vocabulary, but they sound much more capable because the idea is developed. That is what you should aim for. Depth before difficulty. Do not ask, "How can I make this sentence sound advanced?" Ask, "How can I make this thought more complete?" This question changes your speaking immediately. Suppose someone asks, "What kind of person do you enjoy talking to?" A short answer might be, "I like honest people." Now develop it. "I like honest people because conversations feel easier when I do not have to guess what someone really thinks." Add detail. "I especially respect people who can disagree with me without becoming disrespectful." Add example. For example, if they think I made a bad decision, I would rather hear the truth calmly than receive fake support. Add meaning. That kind of honesty helps me trust the relationship. Now the listener has learned something about you. And that is what expression actually means. Expression is not producing more English for the sake of producing more English. Expression is allowing another person to understand your experience, opinion, personality, intention, or feeling more accurately. Many learners also give short answers because they believe they have to answer immediately. Someone asks a question, and they feel they must begin speaking within 1 second, so they choose the fastest available sentence. What did you think about the movie? It was nice. What is your biggest goal? To improve my English. How was your first day? It was difficult. You are allowed to take a moment. A small pause can give you enough time to choose the direction of the answer rather than searching for the complete wording. If someone asks, "What was difficult about your first day?" do not plan every sentence. Simply decide, the difficult part was not the work. It was not knowing anyone. Now begin. The work itself was not very difficult. The hardest part was that I did not know anyone, so I was unsure who I could ask when I needed help. After a few days, that became easier because I started talking to the people around me. Notice how natural that answer feels. You chose the main point first and allowed the language to grow around it. This is much easier than mentally preparing every grammatical structure before opening your mouth. You should also learn to recognize questions that naturally invite expansion. Questions beginning with why, how, what happened, what do you think, what was it like, what did you learn, and how did you feel, are rarely asking for one-word answers. When you hear these questions, mentally prepare for at least 2 layers of meaning. If someone asks, "Why do you want to speak English fluently?" do not stop at, "Because I need it for work." That may be true, but go 1 layer deeper. Because I need it for work, but the bigger reason is independence. I do not want to avoid opportunities just because I am worried that my English will not be good enough. Now the answer contains motivation. Go another layer. For example, if I need to speak to a client, attend a meeting, or explain an idea, I want to focus on the situation instead of worrying about every sentence. Now the listener understands the real goal. You can do the same with emotional questions. How did you feel when you got the result? Instead of, "I was happy," try, "I was happy, but more than that, I felt relieved because I had been worrying about the result for several days. When I finally saw it, I felt like I could relax again." Notice how happy became a more accurate emotional description. This is another reason short answers make your English sound too simple. One general word often hides several emotions. I was angry may really mean, I was disappointed because I expected better. I felt ignored. You down niffy hamden. I was frustrated because nothing changed. I felt disrespected. I was angry at first, but later I realized I was mostly hurt. When you develop the thought, your English becomes emotionally richer, even without sophisticated vocabulary. The same principle applies to opinions. Many learners give opinions as isolated statements. I think studying abroad is better. I think money is important. I think technology is dangerous. A strong opinion usually needs a reason, a condition, a contrast, or an example. Instead of, "I think studying abroad is better," try, "I think studying abroad can be valuable because you are forced to handle everyday situations independently. However, I do not think someone has to move abroad to become fluent. If they create enough speaking practice at home, they can still make strong progress." Now your opinion has balance. Instead of, "Money is important," try, "I think money is important because financial problems can affect almost every part of life. But after a certain point, having more money does not automatically create more peace. How you use it and what kind of life you are building also matters." You sound more thoughtful because you allowed the idea to contain more than one side. A useful phrase for this is, "But there is another side to it." That one phrase can save you from one-dimensional speaking. Suppose you say, "Working from home is convenient because you save time." Then continue, "But there is another side to it. If you work alone every day, you can start feeling disconnected from other people." Now your answer becomes more interesting. Another powerful phrase is, "What I really mean is," use it whenever your first sentence feels too general. I want a better job. What I really mean is that I want work where I can grow instead of repeating the same tasks every day. I want to become more confident. What I really mean is that I want to stop changing my behavior just because I am afraid of being judged. I want better English. What I really mean is that I want to express the same personality in English that I have in my own language. This phrase teaches you to move from surface language to real meaning. You can also use, "The important part is, I made a mistake, but the important part is that I understood why it happened and changed what I was doing. The conversation was difficult, but the important part is that I did not stop when I forgot a word. The result was not perfect, but the important part is that I finally completed something I had been avoiding." These expressions give your thought direction. The listener no longer receives disconnected sentences. They understand what you want them to focus on. Another common problem is that learners think they need new vocabulary every time they add detail. You do not. You can expand an answer using the vocabulary you already know by answering simple questions inside your own mind. Who? What? When? Where? Why? How? What happened next? How did it affect you? What did you learn? Suppose your original sentence is, "I had a difficult conversation yesterday." Ask, "With whom?" "I had a difficult conversation with a friend yesterday." "Why was it difficult?" "We had misunderstood each other about something that happened earlier." "What happened?" At first, both of us were trying to prove that we were right. What changed? After a while, we stopped arguing about the details and started explaining how the situation had made us feel. Result? We did not agree about everything, but we understood each other better. Look at what happened. One sentence became an entire story simply because you asked natural questions. This is an excellent practice method. Take one sentence from your daily life every evening. Perhaps, "Work was stressful today." Do not write an essay. Speak for 1 minute by expanding it. "Work was stressful today because we had several things that needed to be finished at the same time. The biggest problem was that one task depended on information I had not received yet, so I could not move forward. That made me frustrated because I was ready to work, but I had to wait. Eventually, I completed the other tasks first and came back to it later." 1 minute of this kind of practice can be more valuable than memorizing 20 disconnected sentences because you are teaching yourself how to develop your own thoughts. Another day, begin with, "I learned something useful today." Then expand. "I learned something useful today about the way I practice English. I noticed that when I repeat a sentence 10 times, I remember the sound, but when I use the same sentence to talk about my own life, I remember it much better. So now I want to spend less time repeating examples and more time personalizing them." This is real speaking practice. You are using English to think, explain, connect, and reflect. Another technique is what I call the one more sentence rule. Every time your natural instinct tells you to stop speaking, add one more meaningful sentence. Someone asks, "How was the restaurant?" "It was good." Normally you stop, add one more sentence. "The food was good, but what I liked most was how quiet the place was." Now another sentence may naturally appear. "It was easy to have a conversation without shouting over music." You did not force a long answer, you simply refused to stop at the first safe sentence. Try. "What did you do today?" "I worked most of the day." One more sentence. "I was trying to finish something I had delayed earlier in the week." Perhaps another comes. "It took longer than I expected, but I feel better now that it is finished." That is enough. Your speaking becomes fuller without becoming unnatural. The goal is not to turn every question into a 5-minute speech. Good conversation includes short answers too. The skill is knowing when you are giving a short answer because the situation requires it, and when you are giving a short answer because English fear is cutting your thought in half. That distinction matters. If someone asks, "Would you like some coffee?" then "Yes, please" is perfect. You do not need to explain your relationship with coffee. But if someone asks, "Why did you decide to leave your job?" and you answer, "Because it was bad," then you probably have more meaning available. Learn to recognize the difference. Another reason learners struggle to expand thoughts is that they do not have enough connectors ready. You do not need 50. A small group can do enormous work. Use because to give a reason. "I chose this because it was more practical." Use but to show contrast. "I liked the opportunity, but the timing was difficult." Use so to show a result. "I was tired, so I decided to finish the work tomorrow." Use, for example, to make the idea concrete. "I learn better through real situations." For example, I remember vocabulary more easily when I use it in a conversation. Use especially to focus on one part. "I enjoy traveling, especially when I can stay somewhere long enough to understand everyday life." Use actually carefully to correct an assumption or add surprising truth. "I thought I needed more vocabulary, but actually I needed more practice using the words I already knew. Use the reason is when you want to expand. I do not practice late at night anymore. The reason is that my concentration becomes much weaker. With only these connectors, you can build hundreds of natural explanations. Practice them until they become automatic. Take one basic sentence. I like studying alone. Now expand it through connectors. I like studying alone because I can control the pace. I like studying alone, but sometimes I need another person to show me what I am doing wrong. I can focus better alone, so I usually study difficult material by myself. I especially like studying alone when I need to repeat something many times. For example, if I am practicing pronunciation, I feel more comfortable repeating the same sentence without worrying about another person waiting. This is how familiar connectors create expressive power. Another skill is moving from fact to interpretation. A fact tells the listener what happened. An interpretation tells them what it meant to you. Fact: I failed the interview. Interpretation: I failed the interview, but it showed me that my biggest problem was not knowledge. I became too nervous to explain what I already knew. Fact: I moved to another city. Interpretation: I moved to another city, and the experience taught me how dependent I had been on familiar people and routines. Fact: I started speaking English every day. Interpretation: I started speaking English every day, and that made me realize how different understanding a language is from producing it in real time. Interpretation makes your English feel personal. The listener receives more than events, they receive your mind. That is why good storytellers are interesting even when the story itself is ordinary. They do not only say, then this happened, then that happened. They tell you what they noticed, what they expected, what surprised them, and what changed. You can practice this with a small story. Basic version: I went to a new cafe yesterday. I ordered coffee. It was crowded. I left. Nothing wrong with it. Now add personal meaning. I tried a new cafe yesterday because a friend had recommended it. I expected it to be quiet, but it was much more crowded than I imagined. The coffee was actually very good, but I was looking for somewhere to work, so I did not stay long. I would probably return at a less busy time. Same event, completely different level of expression. The second version contains purpose, expectation, contrast, reaction, decision, and future intention. You can use this same structure with almost any story. Why were you there? What did you expect? What actually happened? How did you react? What did you decide? What did you learn? These questions give stories life. Another practice I strongly recommend is expanding from 30 seconds to 90 seconds. Choose one question. For the first attempt, answer for only 30 seconds. Question: what is one habit you want to change? You might say, I want to stop checking my phone immediately after waking up because it makes my morning feel rushed. I want to begin the day more calmly. Good. Now answer the same question for 90 seconds. You are not allowed to repeat the same lines. Add where the habit came from, how it affects you, what you have tried, and what you want to do differently. I started checking my phone in the morning because I wanted to see whether I had received important messages. Over time, it became automatic, and now I sometimes spend 20 minutes reading things that are not important at all. The biggest problem is that my attention becomes scattered before the day even starts. I have tried leaving my phone farther from the bed, and that actually helps. My goal is to spend the first 30 minutes of the morning without social media and use that time to plan the day instead. This exercise teaches you that you already have more language available than you normally use. You simply need practice accessing the next layer. Do the same with what makes a good friend. What is something you changed your mind about? What is one problem in your daily routine? What would you improve about your city? What does success mean to you? What is something you are proud of? Do not memorize answers. Practice expanding thoughts. There is another important habit. Do not introduce 5 new ideas when one idea has not been explained properly. Some learners believe longer speaking means adding more topics. They say, I like traveling because it is interesting, and I also like food, and my friend travels a lot, and last year I bought a new phone, and English is important for travel. The answer becomes longer, but not clearer. Expression requires depth, not random length. Stay with one idea long enough for the listener to understand it. If your point is, travel makes me more independent, develop that one point. When you are somewhere unfamiliar, you have to solve small problems yourself. You have to find places, ask questions, make decisions, and sometimes communicate with people who do not speak your language. Those situations can be uncomfortable, but they teach you that you can handle more than you expected. That is much stronger than mentioning 5 unrelated benefits. When practicing, ask, "Have I explained this idea before moving to another one?" That question will improve your speaking clarity enormously. You should also learn to finish developed thoughts properly. Many learners expand successfully but then keep speaking because they do not know how to end. A good ending often returns to the main point. Suppose you are explaining why you prefer studying in the morning. "I prefer studying in the morning because my mind feels clearer before I begin dealing with the rest of the day. If I wait until evening, I usually have less energy and more distractions. Even 30 focused minutes in the morning gives me better results than an hour when I am tired. So for me, the best time to study is before the day becomes busy." The final sentence closes the thought. You can use simple endings. "That is why. So for me, that is what I learned from it. That is the main reason. In the end, what matters most to me is," these phrases help the listener feel that the idea has landed. Practice the full movement. Start with the point, develop it, land it. For example, "I think mistakes are necessary when learning English." The reason is that speaking is a skill, and skills improve through attempts, not only through understanding. If you wait until every sentence feels safe, you avoid exactly the situations that would make you better. That is why I now try to treat mistakes as information rather than proof that my English is bad. That is a complete thought. You stated the point, explained the reason, developed the meaning, finished with a conclusion. This is what expressive speaking sounds like. Now I want you to build a simple daily habit from this chapter. Every day, choose 3 short sentences that are true about your life. For example, "I am tired. I enjoyed today. I need to improve my English." Take each sentence and speak about it for at least 30 seconds. Do not prepare. Use the expansion questions naturally. Why? What exactly do I mean? Can I give an example? What happened? How did I feel? Why does it matter? What did I learn? You may struggle in the beginning. That struggle is useful. It shows you the exact point where your speaking ability becomes weaker. Perhaps you can give a reason but struggle with examples. Perhaps you can describe events but cannot express feelings. Perhaps you can speak about facts but do not know how to give an opinion. Now your practice becomes targeted. You are no longer saying, "I need better English." You know exactly what part of expression needs work. And please remember one important principle. Do not judge the quality of the thought by the difficulty of the vocabulary. A sentence like, "I stopped talking because I felt that nobody was really listening to me," is simple English, but it can carry a deep human experience. A sentence like, "I changed my mind when I realized I was defending my pride rather than the truth," is not valuable because the vocabulary is impressive. It is valuable because the thought is clear. A sentence like, "I do not want more opportunities if I have no time to enjoy my life," contains ordinary words but a complete perspective. That is the kind of English you want. English that carries something. English that tells the listener what you really think. English that allows your personality to remain visible. Do not become addicted to sounding advanced. Become skilled at being understood. The person listening to you does not need to be impressed by your vocabulary. They need access to your meaning. From now on, whenever you hear yourself say, "It was good," "I liked it," "It was difficult," "I am tired," "I agree," "I disagree," "I want to improve," do not criticize the sentence. Simply ask, what is the next layer? Why was it good? What did you like? What exactly made it difficult? Why are you tired? What part do you agree with? Why do you disagree? What exactly do you want to improve? That question will slowly change the way you speak. Your first sentence will stop being the end. It will become the beginning. You will discover that many thoughts you believed were too difficult for your English were not actually too difficult. You were simply trying to express the complete thought in one perfect sentence instead of building it one clear piece at a time. You do not need to speak like a dictionary. You need to speak like a person. People explain. People add details. People change direction. People give examples. People remember something halfway through and add it. People clarify what they mean. People say, "Actually, the important part is this." That is natural communication. And the more often you practice building thoughts instead of memorizing answers, the more your English will begin sounding alive. So take the next simple sentence that comes out of your mouth and do not let it disappear too quickly. Stay with it, open it, explain it, give it a reason. Give it a detail, give it an example, give it your reaction. And when the meaning is complete, let it land, because expressive English does not begin when you learn enough difficult words. It begins when you finally learn how to let a simple sentence carry the full thought that was waiting behind it. Chapter 4. Learn to say the same meaning more than one way. One of the most frustrating moments in English happens when you already know what you want to say, but the sentence you planned suddenly refuses to come. Maybe you know the idea perfectly. You can explain it easily in your own language. You may even know most of the English words you need. But one part of the sentence feels wrong. One important word disappears, or the grammar becomes too complicated, and suddenly your whole thought stops. At that moment, many learners make the same mistake. They keep trying to repair the same sentence. They start again. They change one word. They stop. They start again from the beginning. And after 3 attempts, the listener still has not received the meaning. A flexible English speaker does something different. When the first sentence does not work, they do not fight with it forever. They change the sentence. That sounds simple, but it is one of the most powerful speaking skills you can develop. Because real fluency is not having only one correct way to express an idea. Real fluency is knowing that if one road closes, you can take another road and still reach the same meaning. Imagine you want to say, "I felt ignored," but the word ignored does not come. A learner who depends on one sentence may freeze. A flexible speaker says, "I felt like nobody was really listening to me." Same meaning, different road. Suppose you want to say, "The decision was unfair," but unfair disappears. You can say, "I do not think everyone was treated in the same way." Or, "Some people were given opportunities that others did not receive." Or, "The same rules were not applied to everyone." 3 different sentences, one central meaning. This ability changes the way you experience English because you stop treating vocabulary like locked doors. If you cannot open one door, you look for another. You are no longer asking, "What is the exact sentence?" You begin asking, "How else can I make this person understand?" That question creates freedom. Let us begin with a sentence that many learners might struggle to express naturally. "I am disappointed in him." There are several ways to communicate that meaning. You can describe the expectation. "I expected better from him." You can describe what happened. "He promised something but he did not do it." You can describe the emotional effect. "What happened made me lose some trust in him." You can describe the contrast. "I thought he would behave differently, but he did not." None of these is exactly the same sentence, but they all move the listener toward the meaning you want. This is paraphrasing. But do not think of paraphrasing as an academic exercise where you replace one word with another synonym. For speaking, paraphrasing means something much more practical. Keep the meaning alive even when your first language choice fails. This is especially important because the word you forget is often not the important part of the communication. Suppose you are explaining why you left a job. You want to say, "The environment became toxic." Maybe you cannot remember toxic. Does the conversation need to stop? No. You can say, "The environment became unhealthy. People were constantly blaming each other. There was a lot of tension, and I started feeling stressed before I even arrived at work." In fact, this explanation may communicate more than the single word toxic. The listener now understands what you mean by it. That teaches us something important. Sometimes losing the advanced word can actually force you to communicate more clearly. You should therefore practice saying important ideas in more than one way before you need the skill under pressure. Take, "I am very busy." Way 1. "I have a lot to do today." Way 2. "My schedule is completely full." Way 3. "I have several things that need my attention at the same time." Way 4. "I do not have much free time today." Different structures. Similar meaning. Now take, "I am confused." Way 1. "I do not understand what is happening." Way 2. "I am not sure how these things connect." Way 3. "I understand some parts but I cannot see the whole picture yet." Way 4. "I need someone to explain this more clearly." When you build several routes toward one idea, your speaking becomes much harder to break. Now try this with emotions, because emotional vocabulary is where many learners become trapped. You want to say, "I was embarrassed." Instead, you could say, "I felt uncomfortable because everyone was looking at me." Or, I wished I could disappear for a moment. Or, I felt nervous because I thought everyone had noticed my mistake. You want to say, I was relieved. You could say, I finally felt like I could relax. Or, the pressure disappeared when I heard the news. Or, I had been worried for days, so hearing the result made me feel much calmer. You want to say, I felt overwhelmed. You could say, there were too many things happening at once. Or, I did not know what I should deal with first. Or, I felt like everything needed my attention at the same time. Notice what is happening. You are not simply replacing one word. You are unpacking the meaning. That is one of the best ways to improve expressive English. When you learn a useful new word, do not only memorize the definition, ask yourself, how would I explain this idea if I forgot the word? That single question makes vocabulary much more usable. Take confident. Do not stop at confident means sure of yourself. Ask, what does confidence look like? A confident person can speak without constantly worrying about what other people think. What does it feel like? You feel able to handle the situation even if everything does not go perfectly. What is the opposite? You do not feel extremely uncertain or afraid to act. Now the word has several connections inside your mind. That makes it easier to retrieve, but even if retrieval fails, you still know how to communicate the concept. You can use the same method with phrases. Suppose you want to say, I changed my mind. Other ways, I used to believe something different. My opinion is not the same as it was before. I see the situation differently now. I thought one thing at first, but after learning more, my view changed. This becomes extremely useful in real conversation because sometimes you know the idea but not the exact phrase. Take, I completely agree. Other ways, that is exactly how I see it. I think you are right about that. I have had the same thought. That makes sense to me. Take, I disagree. Other ways, I see it differently. I understand your point, but I do not reach the same conclusion. I am not completely convinced by that idea. I think there may be another way to look at it. Now your English becomes less repetitive too. This is important because many learners depend heavily on the same small collection of phrases. Everything is, I think, I think, I think. Every opinion begins the same way. You can expand your expression by learning different roots. Instead of always saying, I think this is a good idea, try, for me this makes sense. My view is that this could work. What I like about this idea is, the main advantage I see is, I can understand why people support this. These are not simply better phrases, they give you different ways to enter the same kind of thought. The goal is not to memorize 20 alternatives for everything. That could create more pressure. The goal is to develop the habit of flexibility. If the sentence feels blocked, simplify it. If the word disappears, describe it. If the grammar becomes complicated, divide the idea. If the listener looks confused, say it another way. That is the reflex you want. Imagine you are in a conversation and you say, I think the company should, the company needs. You are trying to remember restructure. Do not keep fighting. Say, I think the company needs to change the way the teams are organized. Meaning delivered. Perhaps the word restructure comes back later. That is fine. The conversation has survived. Now imagine you want to say, she is very considerate. The word disappears. You can say, she pays attention to how other people feel before she makes decisions. The listener understands. Or you want to say, he is stubborn. You say, once he decides something, it is very difficult to make him change his mind. Again, the communication works. This is why definitions are such a powerful speaking tool. You do not need dictionary definitions. You need practical definitions. Instead of trying to explain stubborn as unreasonably determined not to change one's attitude, simply say what the behavior looks like. He does not change his mind easily. Simple English, clear meaning. This same principle helps with objects. Forget tripod, the thing that holds the camera on 3 legs. Forget receipt, the paper the shop gives you after you pay. Forget helmet, the hard thing you wear on your head for protection. Forget ladder, the thing you climb when you need to reach somewhere high. If the listener understands, you succeeded. Now let us move into more complex thoughts. Suppose you want to say, I do not want people to misunderstand my silence as agreement. That sentence may feel difficult. Break it. Sometimes I stay quiet because I do not want to argue. But that does not mean I agree. I do not want people to think my silence means I support what they are saying. 3 simple sentences carry the same idea. This is one of the biggest secrets of expressive English. When the thought is complicated, the English does not have to become complicated. You can simplify the language without simplifying the meaning. Suppose your thought is, I appreciate constructive criticism, but I dislike criticism that is designed only to make someone feel superior. You may struggle with that exact sentence. Build it. I do not mind when someone tells me what I can improve. That can help me. But sometimes people criticize others only because they want to feel smarter or more important. That kind of criticism is different. The meaning remains intelligent. The language becomes manageable. This is exactly what you want as a learner. You should not measure intelligence by sentence length. A clear idea expressed simply is stronger than a sophisticated sentence that collapses halfway through. Another excellent technique is to use examples when explanation becomes difficult. Suppose you want to say, I value consistency. Maybe consistency feels difficult. Use an example. For me, it is important when a person behaves the same way over time. If someone is friendly today but completely different tomorrow, I find it difficult to trust them. The example explains the concept. Suppose you want to explain discipline. Instead of searching for a perfect definition, discipline is when you still do what needs to be done even on days when you do not feel motivated. Very clear. You can practice this every day. Choose one abstract word: success, respect, trust, confidence, freedom, loyalty, maturity, responsibility, patience, discipline. Then explain the word without using it. For trust, it is the feeling that allows you to depend on someone without constantly worrying that they will betray you. For freedom, for me, it means having enough control over my life to make important choices for myself. For maturity, it is when a person can control their reactions, accept responsibility, and think about consequences, instead of only doing what feels good immediately. These exercises make your English deeper because they teach you how to explain ideas, not merely name them. Another technique is comparison. If an idea is difficult to describe directly, compare it with something familiar. Suppose you want to explain the difference between knowing English and speaking English. You could say, knowing English is like knowing how a car works. Speaking English is like actually driving it in traffic. The comparison makes the idea visible. Suppose you want to explain why vocabulary without use disappears. Vocabulary is like food stored in a kitchen. Having it available does not mean you have prepared a meal. Or, learning a word once is like meeting a person once. You may recognize them later, but that does not mean you know them well. Comparisons are powerful because they allow simple vocabulary to carry complex meaning. You do not need to sound academic. You need to make the listener see the idea. Another technique is contrast. Sometimes you can explain what you mean by showing what you do not mean. Suppose you say, I want confidence. What kind of confidence? I do not mean never feeling nervous. I mean being able to continue speaking even when I feel nervous. That is much clearer. Suppose you say, I want fluent English. Clarify. I do not mean speaking extremely fast. I mean being able to express my thoughts without constantly stopping to build every sentence. Suppose you say, I want success. I do not mean becoming famous or extremely rich. I mean having enough control over my time and money to live without constant stress. Contrast helps you define your personal meaning, and personal meaning is exactly what this audiobook is trying to help you express. You can also repair yourself naturally after realizing that your first sentence did not communicate the right idea. Many learners become embarrassed when they need to change what they just said, but natural speakers do this constantly. They say, that is not exactly what I mean. Let me say that differently. What I am trying to say is, a better way to explain it is, actually the important part is, these phrases are incredibly useful. Suppose you say, I do not like working with people. Then you realize that is too strong. You can repair it. That is not exactly what I mean. I enjoy working with people, but I need some quiet time to concentrate on difficult tasks. Now the listener understands the real idea. Suppose you say, money does not matter. Then realize the statement is too simple. What I mean is that money matters, but I do not think having more money automatically makes someone happier. That is clearer. Suppose you say, I do not care what people think. Then, actually, let me say that differently. I care about useful feedback, but I do not want every opinion to control my decisions. This ability is incredibly powerful because it removes the pressure to make your first sentence perfect. You can begin, then adjust. You can speak, then clarify. You can move closer to the meaning while the conversation is already happening. That is real communication. Learners often believe they must think first and speak only when the complete sentence is ready. But expressive speakers frequently discover the best wording while they are speaking. They begin with the general idea and refine it. You can do the same. If the first version is incomplete, say, "Let me explain that better." Then go deeper. Suppose someone asks, "Why are you learning English?" You answer, "For work." Then realize that is not the complete truth. Actually, that is only part of it. Work is important, but I also want the independence to travel, learn, and communicate without always depending on another person. The second version reveals more of you. This is not a mistake, it is development. Another excellent exercise is the 3 roads exercise. Choose one idea and force yourself to explain it in 3 different ways. Idea: I am nervous about the interview. Road 1. Direct: I am nervous because I do not know what questions they will ask. Road 2. Physical feeling: every time I think about the interview, I feel tension because I am worried my mind will go blank. Road 3. Deeper reason: the interview matters to me, so I am putting too much pressure on myself to perform perfectly. All 3 describe the same general situation from different angles. Try: I need more confidence in English. Road 1. I want to speak without constantly worrying about mistakes. Road 2. I want to feel comfortable enough to continue even when I do not know the perfect word. Road 3. I want my English to show more of my real personality instead of making me quiet. Now the concept becomes richer. Try: my job is stressful. Road 1. I have too many tasks at the same time. Road 2. I rarely know which problem will suddenly become urgent. Road 3. The hardest part is that I never feel completely finished, even at the end of the day. This exercise teaches you that one idea can contain several truths, that makes your speaking more interesting and helps you escape repetitive language. Another useful practice is replacing difficult sentences with 2 easy ones. Suppose you want to say, "Although I appreciate the opportunity, I am concerned that accepting it would leave me with insufficient time for my existing responsibilities." That may be difficult under pressure. Break it. "I really appreciate the opportunity. My concern is that I already have several responsibilities, and I may not have enough time to do everything properly." Much easier. Suppose, despite having prepared carefully, I was unable to express my ideas as clearly as I wanted because I became nervous. Simplify: I prepared carefully, but I became nervous during the conversation. Because of that, I did not explain my ideas as clearly as I wanted. Same meaning. More control. This is something advanced learners sometimes forget. They think improving English means constantly making sentences longer, but strong communication often means knowing when to make them shorter. Short sentences give your thought breathing space. They reduce grammar pressure. They allow the listener to follow, and they make it easier for you to add the next idea. Do not confuse complexity with quality. Your goal is not to sound like a textbook. Your goal is to express yourself. Another common challenge happens when someone does not understand you. Some learners simply repeat the exact same sentence louder. That usually does not solve anything. If the listener says, "Sorry, what do you mean?" do not only repeat, change the explanation. Suppose you said, "The environment at work was very competitive." The listener asks, "What do you mean by competitive?" Explain. "I mean people were always comparing results, trying to be better than each other, and sometimes refusing to help because they wanted to succeed individually." Now the idea becomes clearer. Suppose you said, "I want more stability." What do you mean? "I want a situation where I know what to expect. I do not want my income, schedule, or responsibilities changing all the time." Clarification is not failure. Clarification is communication. In fact, being able to explain yourself a second time is a higher skill than repeating one memorized sentence perfectly. This is why you should deliberately practice misunderstanding. Imagine someone says, "I don't understand." Then force yourself to say the same thing differently. For example, first version: learning English has increased my independence. Second version: I can now handle more situations by myself. Third version: I do not need as much help from other people when I have to communicate in English. 3 levels, same core meaning. Now, first version: I find crowded environments overwhelming. Second, when there are too many people and too much noise, I find it difficult to relax. Third, I feel mentally tired very quickly in busy places. This practice prepares you for real conversations where understanding is never guaranteed. Another powerful learning method is to take one sentence from a book, podcast, or video and rebuild it using your own English. Do not copy every word. Ask, what does this sentence actually mean? Then express that meaning with vocabulary you already control. For example, you hear, people often underestimate the cumulative impact of small daily habits. Maybe that sounds advanced. Meaning, people do not realize how powerful small habits can become when they repeat them every day. Now you own the idea. You are not only memorizing another person's language, you are learning to translate meaning into your own English. This is exactly what expressive speakers do. They do not depend only on sentences they have heard before. They understand ideas and rebuild them. You can practice this with 5 minutes a day. Listen to one sentence. Pause. Do not repeat it exactly. Explain it in easier English. Then explain it again using a personal example. For instance, original idea. Confidence grows through repeated exposure to uncomfortable situations. Simpler version. You become more confident when you repeatedly do things that make you nervous. Personal version. My English confidence improves when I actually speak to people instead of only practicing alone. Now the idea has moved from passive understanding into active expression. This is powerful learning. Another useful exercise is one meaning, 3 levels. Take one idea and express it simply, normally, and in greater detail. Idea. You are tired because of work. Simple. I am tired because I worked a lot today. Natural. I am tired because today was much busier than usual. Detailed. I am tired because several problems appeared at the same time, and I had to keep switching between tasks without getting a proper break. You do not have to use the most detailed version every time. The skill is being able to choose. If you are ordering food, simple English is enough. If you are explaining a serious problem to your manager, you may need more detail. If you are telling a friend how you feel, you may need emotional language. Expressive English means adjusting the amount of language to the situation. Another idea, you enjoyed a trip. Simple. The trip was great. Natural. I really enjoyed the trip because I finally had time to relax. Detailed. What I enjoyed most was being away from my normal routine. I had been feeling mentally tired for several weeks, so having a few quiet days gave me the chance to slow down and come back with more energy. The thought becomes richer without becoming unnatural. Another idea, you disagree with someone. Simple. I don't agree. Natural. I understand your point, but I see the situation differently. Detailed. I understand why that approach might work in the short term, but I think it could create a bigger problem later because it does not address the main cause. Now you have range. Range is extremely valuable. Some learners know only simple English. Others learn advanced structures but lose the ability to simplify. You need both. You should be able to say, I am tired, and, when necessary, I have been mentally exhausted because I have had too many responsibilities competing for my attention. Both are useful. The situation decides which one you need. There is another benefit to paraphrasing. It teaches you to think more directly in English. When you depend on exact translation, you may have one sentence in your first language and desperately search for its English equivalent. But when you become comfortable saying the meaning several ways, exact translation becomes less important. You stop asking, what is the English sentence for this? You begin thinking, what do I want this person to understand? Then English grows around that meaning. That is a huge shift. Suppose your first language thought is difficult to translate directly. Instead of searching for a perfect equivalent, identify the core idea. I feel that people only remember me when they need something. Now explain it naturally. Sometimes I feel like certain people contact me only when they need help. When everything is fine, I rarely hear from them. You have not translated word by word. You have communicated the experience. This is how your English voice becomes more independent. Another practice is to explain the same experience to 3 different people. Imagine you had a difficult day. Explain it to a close friend. Today was exhausting. Everything seemed to go wrong at the same time. And by the afternoon, I just wanted to go home. Now explain it to a coworker. Today was unusually busy because several urgent tasks appeared at the same time. Now explain it to a child or beginner. I had a lot of work today, so I am very tired. Same reality, different expression. This develops flexibility and teaches you that there is rarely only one correct sentence. English gives you choices. Your confidence increases when you begin seeing those choices. You are no longer trapped by one sentence. You can change vocabulary. You can shorten. You can expand. You can give an example. You can use the opposite. You can define. You can compare. You can repair. You can start again from another angle without starting the entire conversation over. This is what you should practice until it becomes instinct. The next time a sentence stops halfway, do not immediately say, "My English is bad." Say, "Let me try another way." That sentence alone can transform the moment. Imagine, I wanted to tell him that I don't know the word. Let me say it another way. I felt like he did not respect the time and effort I had given. Excellent. The word disappeared, the meaning did not, or the project was I cannot remember the exact word. What I mean is that it required much more time and energy than we originally expected. Conversation continues. Or, I think the decision was, let me explain it differently. I think some people benefited while others were treated unfairly. You remained in control. That is what you want, not perfect retrieval. Communication control. At the end of today's practice, take 5 thoughts from your own life and say each one 3 ways. Do not use a dictionary at first. Use what you already know. Thought 1. I am worried about something. Say it 3 ways. Thought 2. I am proud of something. 3 ways. Thought 3. I disagree with an idea. 3 ways. Thought 4. I need to make a difficult decision. 3 ways. Thought 5. I learned something from a mistake. 3 ways. Your first versions may feel repetitive. Keep going. Force yourself to find another angle. You may discover that the second or third version actually sounds more natural than the first. That is the lesson. The sentence that first appears in your mind is not always the best sentence available to you. You have alternatives. And the more alternatives you build, the less frightened you become when English refuses to cooperate perfectly. Remember this. A learner asks, "What is the correct way to say this?" A growing speaker begins asking, "What are some clear ways I can say this?" That small difference changes everything. One question searches for a single perfect road, the other creates freedom, and freedom is exactly what expressive speaking needs. You do not want English that works only when every remembered word arrives at the perfect moment. You want English that survives forgotten words, difficult emotions, unexpected questions, and imperfect sentences. You want English that can bend without breaking. So from today, when the perfect sentence does not come, do not surrender the thought. Simplify it, describe it, break it apart. Give an example, compare it, show the opposite, correct yourself, say it again differently. Keep moving toward the meaning until the listener understands, because the real power of English is not being able to say one sentence perfectly. It is knowing that when one sentence fails, you still have another way to be understood. Chapter 5. Put your real personality into your English. There is a strange moment that many English learners eventually experience. You listen to yourself speaking and realize that the person coming through in English does not completely sound like you. In your first language, you may be funny, thoughtful, emotional, opinionated, curious, warm, direct, or very expressive. You know how to tell a story in a way that makes people listen. You know how to disagree without sounding rude. You know how to describe exactly why something bothered you. You know how to make a friend laugh with one sentence. But when you switch to English, much of that personality seems to disappear, and suddenly you become someone who says, "Yes, it was good. I think it is nice. Maybe. I don't know. And it was difficult." The grammar may be correct. The vocabulary may be understandable. Yet something is missing. The missing part is often not English itself. The missing part is you. This is one of the most important stages of becoming an expressive speaker because communication is not only about transferring information. When people speak naturally, they reveal how they see the world. They show what surprises them, what annoys them, what makes them laugh, what they care about, what they doubt, what they remember, what they expect, and what they believe. If your English carries only facts, people may understand the information but still know very little about the person speaking. Imagine someone asks, "How was your weekend?" You answer, "It was good. I stayed home." Everything is correct. But perhaps the real experience was this. I stayed home almost the entire weekend. And honestly, that was exactly what I needed. I had been around people all week, so doing absolutely nothing for a few hours felt better than going anywhere. Now the listener has learned something about you. They know not only what you did, but how the experience felt and why it mattered. That is expression. Take another answer. What did you think about the restaurant? Basic version. The food was good. Now add your perspective. The food was good, but what surprised me was how quiet the restaurant was. I expected it to be crowded, so I actually enjoyed the atmosphere more than the food. Suddenly the answer has personality. You are not merely reporting whether the food was good. You are showing what caught your attention. This is a powerful habit you can develop. After giving the fact, ask yourself, what did I personally notice about it? Two people can experience the same event and notice completely different things. One person visits a city and talks about the architecture. Another talks about how friendly the people were. Another remembers the traffic. Another remembers a small cafe. Another remembers how independent they felt walking somewhere alone. Your perspective is what turns ordinary English into personal English. Suppose someone asks, "Do you like living in a big city?" A generic answer might be, "Yes, because there are more opportunities." That is fine, but perhaps your real thought is more complicated. You might say, "I like the opportunities, but I do not enjoy the feeling that everything is always moving. Sometimes I like being surrounded by people, and sometimes I feel like I need to escape from the noise completely." That sounds more human because human opinions are rarely one simple adjective. You can like something and still dislike part of it. You can feel grateful and frustrated at the same time. You can agree with an idea, but dislike the way it is being used. You can be excited about an opportunity and afraid of what it may require from you. Expressive English needs room for these mixed feelings. Instead of saying, "I am happy about the new job," you might say, "I am excited about the new job, but I would be lying if I said I was not nervous too. I wanted this opportunity, but now that it is real, I am thinking about everything I will have to learn." That is much closer to how people actually experience life. Your goal should not be to replace simple English with complicated English. Your goal should be to make the simple English more accurate to your real experience. One of the easiest ways to do this is to add reaction. Whenever you describe an event, ask, "What was my reaction?" Suppose, "My manager changed the deadline." That is information. Add reaction. "My manager changed the deadline, and honestly, I was frustrated because I had planned the whole week around the original date." Now the listener understands your emotional position. Another, "My friend called me after many months." Add reaction. "My friend called me after many months, and I was genuinely surprised, because I had assumed we had slowly lost contact." Another, "I passed the exam." Add reaction. "I passed the exam, but the strongest feeling was actually relief because I had spent the entire week imagining the worst result." Notice how much more interesting the sentence becomes when you explain the emotional reaction. You can practice this with ordinary daily events. "I missed the bus. How did you react?" "At first I was annoyed, but then I realized the next bus was only 10 minutes away, so it was not as serious as it felt." "I received a message from someone." Reaction? "I was happy to see the message because I had been wondering whether everything was okay." "The meeting was canceled." Reaction? "Honestly, I was relieved because I needed more time to prepare." This practice gives you language for real life instead of only textbook topics. Another important part of personality is preference. Many learners know how to say what they like, but they do not explain what kind of experience suits them personally. For example, "I like traveling." Go deeper. "I enjoy traveling, but I prefer staying in one place long enough to understand the daily life there." "I do not enjoy visiting 5 cities in 5 days because I feel like I only see the surface." Now the listener knows what kind of traveler you are. "I like learning English." Go deeper. "I enjoy learning English most when I can use something immediately. I lose interest when I memorize a long list of words without knowing when I would actually say them." That tells us how you learn. "I like spending time alone." Go deeper. "I enjoy being alone when I choose it." There is a big difference between peaceful solitude and feeling ignored. Now the thought has nuance. This is exactly what makes conversation interesting. People do not connect through facts alone. They connect through perspective. Another powerful tool is the phrase, "for me." This small phrase gives you permission to stop trying to make every opinion sound universal. For me, confidence does not mean speaking without fear. it means being able to continue even when I feel nervous. For me, success means having enough control over my time to choose what deserves my attention. For me, friendship becomes difficult when I feel I have to pretend everything is fine. For me, learning English became easier when I stopped trying to sound advanced and started trying to sound clear. These sentences are powerful because they belong to the speaker. You are not trying to prove that everyone must agree. You are showing how you personally understand something. This can also reduce the pressure of expressing opinions. Instead of thinking, "What is the correct answer?" you ask, "What is true for me?" That question produces more authentic speech. Try it now. Finish these ideas aloud. For me, a good friend is someone who, for me, confidence means. For me, the hardest part of learning English is. For me, a peaceful life would look like. For me, respect disappears when. Do not search for impressive vocabulary. Speak from experience. Another phrase that brings personality into English is, "What I like about it is," instead of, "I like this book." Say, "What I like about this book is that it explains difficult ideas without making them feel complicated." Instead of, "I like my city." Say, "What I like about my city is that even when it becomes busy, there are still places where you can slow down." Instead of, "I like working alone." Say, "What I like about working alone is that I can stay with one idea without constantly changing my attention." This structure helps you move from a basic opinion to a specific personal reason. Now try the opposite. What bothers me is, "I do not like social media," becomes, "What bothers me about social media is not the technology itself. It is how easily 10 minutes can become an hour without you noticing." "I do not like meetings," becomes, "What bothers me about many meetings is that people keep discussing the same point without deciding what should happen next." "I do not like criticism," becomes, "What bothers me is not criticism itself. I can accept someone telling me what needs improvement." "What I dislike is when criticism is used to embarrass someone instead of helping them." Now the listener understands you much more accurately. This is particularly useful for disagreement because basic English can sometimes make disagreement sound harsher than you intend. Suppose someone says, "People should work as much as possible while they are young." You disagree. A simple answer? "No, I don't agree." That works, but you can express yourself more fully. "I understand why people say that, because working hard when you are young can create opportunities later. But for me, there has to be a limit. If work destroys your health, relationships, and ability to enjoy anything, I do not think that should be called success." Now your disagreement contains respect, reason, and personal value. Another example, "Everyone should live abroad at least once." Instead of, "I disagree, try." "I can understand why living abroad can teach independence, but I do not think one experience is right for everyone. Some people can grow enormously without leaving their country." That sounds thoughtful rather than reactive. You should practice disagreement because it forces you to express more than vocabulary. You must show tone, respect, certainty, and perspective. Useful expressions include, "I see why someone might think that, but I agree with part of that, especially, my experience has been a little different. I understand the idea, but I would make one distinction. I am not completely convinced because what makes me hesitate is." These expressions make room for your real thinking. You do not have to choose between total agreement and total disagreement. Perhaps someone says, "Technology makes life easier." You can say, "I agree in many ways, especially when it saves time. But I think some technologies make individual tasks easier, while making our attention harder to control." Now your thought has depth. Another major part of personality is uncertainty. Learners sometimes believe fluent English requires sounding certain about everything. But natural speakers often say, "I am still thinking about that. I am not completely sure. My opinion has changed a few times. I can see both sides. I used to believe that, but now I am less certain. Part of me agrees, but another part has doubts." These are powerful because real thinking often contains uncertainty. Suppose someone asks, "Would you ever move permanently to another country?" Instead of forcing a confident answer, "Yes, definitely," you might say, "I am not sure. I like the idea of experiencing another country, but living somewhere permanently is different from visiting. I think I would have to experience it before knowing whether it suited me." That sounds natural because the uncertainty itself is part of the truth. Another example, "Do you think money makes people happy?" You can say, "I do not think there is a simple answer. Money can remove many kinds of stress, especially when someone is struggling with basic needs, but I do not think it automatically gives people purpose, peace, or healthy relationships. You are expressing complexity rather than hiding it. Another part of your personality that should enter your English is humor. This can feel difficult because humor is connected to timing, culture, confidence, and word choice. But you do not need to become a comedian in English. Begin by allowing your natural reactions to appear. Suppose someone asks, "How was your first attempt at cooking?" Instead of, "It was bad," you could say, "Let us just say the smoke alarm was more successful than the food." That sentence shows personality. Or, "Did you enjoy waking up early?" I enjoyed the idea of waking up early much more than the actual experience. Or, "Are you good at remembering names?" I am excellent at remembering that I forgot someone's name. Simple humor often comes from contrast. You do not have to memorize jokes. You can practice noticing the funny side of ordinary experiences. This is important because many learners become so serious when speaking English that their personality disappears. They are monitoring grammar, checking pronunciation, searching vocabulary, avoiding mistakes. There is no attention left for playfulness. But as your confidence grows, give yourself permission to react naturally. If something is funny, laugh. If something is surprising, show surprise. If something sounds ridiculous, allow your tone to communicate that. Language is not only sentences, it is human response. You should also learn to express intensity more accurately. Many learners use very for almost everything. Very good, very bad, very tired, very happy, very difficult. There is nothing wrong with very, but sometimes your meaning needs more precision. Instead of, "I was very tired," you might say, "I was so tired that I could barely concentrate." Instead of, "I was very surprised. I genuinely did not expect that to happen." Instead of, "I was very angry. I was frustrated enough that I needed to leave the conversation for a few minutes." Instead of, "I was very happy. I could not stop smiling when I heard the news." Again, you are explaining the feeling instead of simply increasing the adjective. This makes your English more vivid. Try this exercise. Take. I was very nervous. Do not use very. Explain the evidence. My hands were cold. I kept checking the time, and I could not stop thinking about everything that might go wrong. Now the listener can feel the nervousness. Take. I was very excited. I kept thinking about it all day and checking whether the time had finally arrived. Take. I was very disappointed. I had expected the result for weeks, so when it did not happen, I needed some time before I could think about what to do next. This skill makes storytelling much stronger. Another way to reveal personality is to include expectation versus reality. This naturally creates engaging English because human beings are interested in surprise. Start with, "I expected," then, "but actually." For example, I expected the interview to be extremely formal, but actually, the interviewer was relaxed and conversational. That helped me forget some of my nervousness. I expected living alone to feel lonely, but what surprised me was how peaceful it felt to control my own routine. I expected English speaking to become easy once I learned enough vocabulary, but actually, I discovered that using simple words quickly was much harder than recognizing advanced words. I thought the trip would be relaxing, but we spent so much time moving from one place to another that I needed another holiday afterward. Expectation creates tension. Reality creates interest. Your opinion afterward reveals personality. This pattern can make even simple stories more engaging. Another powerful element is what changed your mind. People become interesting when they explain how their thinking developed. Instead of, "I think mistakes are useful," try, "I used to hate making mistakes in English because I thought they proved that I was not ready to speak. But after avoiding conversations for a long time, I realized that trying to protect myself from mistakes was also protecting me from improvement." Now your opinion has a history. Instead of, "I like being alone," try, "I used to think spending time alone meant something was wrong socially. As I got older, I realized that solitude can be useful when you choose it instead of being forced into it. The change itself makes the thought more meaningful." Use this pattern. I used to think, then I experienced, now I believe. For English learning, I used to think fluent speakers knew every word. Then I started noticing how often people describe, rephrase, and correct themselves. Now I think fluency has more to do with flexibility than perfection. For confidence, I used to think confidence had to come before action. Then I noticed that the situations I avoided never became easier. Now I think confidence often appears after you have done the uncomfortable thing several times. For work, I used to think being busy meant being productive. Then I realized I could spend an entire day reacting to small tasks and still make no progress on important work. Now I protect time for the work that actually matters. These patterns let your English carry your growth. Another area where learners often lose personality is storytelling. They focus so much on tense accuracy that the story becomes a list. I went there, I saw him, we talked, then I came home. Correct, but flat. A more expressive story asks, what did you expect? What did you notice? What surprised you? What did you feel? What was the moment that mattered? What happened afterward? Imagine, I met an old friend yesterday. Now tell it personally. I met an old friend yesterday whom I had not seen for almost 2 years. What surprised me was how quickly the conversation felt normal again. I expected the first few minutes to be awkward because so much time had passed. But within 5 minutes, we were talking exactly as we used to. The story now contains expectation, surprise, and emotion. Add reflection. It made me realize that some relationships can survive long periods of silence much better than others. Now the story has meaning. That last step is extremely powerful. After telling what happened, ask, what did this experience make me realize? A difficult conversation might make you realize something about trust. A failure might reveal something about preparation. A trip might teach you something about independence. A mistake might reveal a habit. A friendship might show you what you value. This transforms a sequence of events into a real story. For example, I missed an important opportunity because I was too afraid to speak. Then reflection. At the time, I thought staying silent protected me from embarrassment. Later, I realized that silence also has a cost. Sometimes you regret the words you say, but sometimes you regret the words you never allowed yourself to say. That is expressive English. The vocabulary is accessible. The meaning is strong. You can also express personality through specific details. Compare, I had a bad morning, with, my morning started badly because I woke up late, could not find my keys, and realized I had forgotten to charge my phone. The second sentence is easier to imagine. Compare, the place was beautiful, with, the place was so quiet that I could hear the water from the other side of the valley. Compare, he is a good person, with, he is the kind of person who remembers small things you told him months ago. The specific detail often says more than a general adjective. This is a golden rule for expressive English. When an adjective feels weak, give evidence. Instead of saying someone is kind, whenever someone new joins the team, she is usually the first person who makes them feel included. Instead of saying someone is selfish, he is very helpful when he needs something, but disappears when another person needs help. Instead of saying a teacher is excellent, she does not simply tell you that an answer is wrong. She helps you understand why your thinking led you there. Now the listener sees the quality. This is how strong expression works. Another powerful practice is the personal detail challenge. Choose one ordinary topic: coffee, weather, work, sleep, social media, exercise, family, travel, learning English. Do not speak generally. Say something that could only come from your experience. Instead of, coffee gives you energy, say, I rarely drink coffee for the taste. For me, it is more connected to the moment when I finally sit down and begin working. Instead of, rain is relaxing, say, I enjoy rain when I am at home, but the feeling changes completely when I have somewhere important to go. Instead of, exercise is important, say, I notice that exercise affects my mood more than my appearance. When I do not move for several days, I become mentally slower. These answers immediately sound more authentic. You should also practice strong but simple opinions. Choose one statement and respond honestly. Everyone needs university education. Money should be the main career goal. Social media brings people closer. People should always forgive. Living alone is better. Failure makes people stronger. Do not search online for the smartest answer. Build your answer from your own reasoning. For example, failure makes people stronger. You might say, I do not think failure automatically makes anyone stronger. Sometimes people repeat the same mistake for years. Failure becomes useful only when you understand what went wrong and change something afterward. That is a strong thought. Another, people should always forgive. I think forgiveness can help someone release anger, but forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. You may stop carrying resentment and still decide that a person should not have the same access to your life. This type of practice develops your voice because you are expressing distinctions, and distinctions make speech more intelligent, not good or bad, but it depends on what kind, not I agree or disagree, but I agree with this part, but not that part, not I like it or hate it, but I value one part while finding another difficult. This is the language of real thought. Another essential skill is learning to express why something matters to you. You may say, I want to speak English fluently. Why does it matter? Not the surface reason, the deeper reason. Perhaps, I want to be able to enter a conversation without feeling that my personality becomes smaller. Or, I want to stop avoiding opportunities because I am afraid I will not be able to explain myself. Or, I want to be able to handle important situations without depending on someone else to speak for me. Now the goal becomes emotionally real. This same exercise works with almost anything. I want more money. Why? Because I want enough financial stability that every unexpected expense does not create panic. I want a better job. Why? Because I want to feel that the effort I give is leading somewhere instead of repeating the same year again and again. I want to travel. Why? Because I want experiences that interrupt my normal routine and show me how other people live. When you find the deeper reason, your English becomes more meaningful. Another useful phrase is, it is not only about, I want better English, but it is not only about communication, it is also about confidence and independence. I want to earn more money, but it is not only about buying things, I want more control over my choices. I enjoy traveling, but it is not only about seeing beautiful places. I like the feeling of being somewhere unfamiliar and having to figure things out. This structure helps you reveal the deeper layer. Another is, what matters to me is not speaking perfectly. It is being able to stay in the conversation when something unexpected happens. What matters to me in friendship is consistency. I want to know that the person does not completely change depending on who is around. What matters to me at work is having enough trust to make decisions without asking permission for every small thing. These phrases create personal English. And the more personal your English becomes, the easier it may become to remember because the sentences are connected to real meaning rather than abstract exercises. There is another important lesson. Do not imitate someone else's personality in English. It is useful to copy pronunciation, sentence rhythm, useful phrases, and natural expressions. But your goal is not to become a copy of the speaker you are learning from. If someone speaks very energetically and you are naturally calm, you do not need to force yourself into their personality. If a teacher uses a lot of humor, but you prefer thoughtful speech, you do not need to imitate every joke. If someone is very direct, but you naturally communicate gently, you can learn their English without borrowing their personality. Fluency should make you more visible, not replace you. Ask yourself, how do I naturally communicate in my first language? Do I tell long stories? Do I use humor? Do I speak directly? Do I ask many questions? Do I explain carefully? Do I react emotionally? Do I prefer short, strong statements? Do I think before answering? These are clues to the English voice you should develop. Perhaps you are naturally thoughtful. Then useful English phrases might include, I need a moment to think about that. There are a few ways to look at it. I am not completely sure, but my first thought is, the part I find most interesting is, perhaps you are direct. The main issue for me is, I disagree for one simple reason. What matters here is, let me be clear about one thing. Perhaps you are warm and relational. I can understand why you felt that way. That must have been difficult. I would probably have reacted the same way. What happened after that? Build English around the communicator you already are. Another exercise is to record yourself answering the same question twice. The first time, answer normally. Question: what was one important experience in your life? Listen to yourself. Then answer again with 4 goals. Include one emotion. Include one specific detail. Include one personal reaction. Include one lesson. You may be surprised by the difference. First answer: moving to another city was important because I learned many things. Second answer: moving to another city was important because it was the first time I had to handle everything without familiar people around me. During the first few weeks, even small problems felt bigger because I did not know whom to ask for help. But after a while, I noticed that I had become more comfortable making decisions by myself. The experience taught me that independence often feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. The second version sounds like a person. This is the target. You can do this exercise with: what are you proud of? What makes you nervous? What kind of people do you respect? What has English changed for you? What is something you regret? What does success mean to you? What kind of life do you want? Do not memorize these answers. Discover them. That difference matters. Memorized answers show English you prepared. Discovered answers develop English you can use. Another powerful daily practice is to choose one emotion and connect it to a real memory. Emotion: disappointed. I felt disappointed when. Explain what you expected and what actually happened. Emotion: proud. I felt proud when. Explain why the achievement mattered. Emotion: embarrassed. I felt embarrassed when. Explain what you thought other people noticed. Emotion: relieved. I felt relieved when. Explain what pressure had existed before. Emotion: grateful. I felt grateful when. Explain what someone did and why it mattered. This builds emotional vocabulary through your life. You will remember these expressions more easily because they belong to experiences you already understand deeply. And remember, you do not need advanced emotional vocabulary immediately. If you cannot remember resentful, describe the feeling. I was still angry about something that happened earlier, even though I was trying not to show it. If you cannot remember insecure, I kept comparing myself with other people and feeling like I was not good enough. If you cannot remember nostalgic, I felt happy remembering the past, but also a little sad because I knew that time was gone. Meaning first, word second. That principle should remain with you throughout this audiobook. Another sign that personality is entering your English is when you begin using your own examples instead of textbook examples. Do not practice "if I won the lottery" every day if that topic means nothing to you. Talk about decisions you are actually making, problems you actually face, people you actually know, situations that actually annoy you, goals you genuinely care about, questions you think about when nobody is asking you to practice English. That is where your strongest speaking material lives. For example, instead of practicing, "My favorite season is summer because the weather is warm," perhaps the real topic you care about is, "I find it difficult to stay consistent when I cannot see quick progress." Now speak about that. At the beginning of a new goal, I usually feel motivated because everything feels fresh. The difficult part comes when the excitement disappears, but the result is still far away. That is where I usually need a routine, more than motivation. That is language worth owning. Your English should become a vehicle for your actual mind. Another important point is that you do not need to reveal deeply personal information to express personality. Authentic does not mean private. You can express yourself through harmless everyday preferences, observations, values, humor, and reactions. You can talk about why you prefer quiet places, why you work better in the morning, why you dislike wasting food, why you enjoy certain music, why you prefer a few close friends, why you believe learning should be practical, why you like walking alone, why you struggle with multitasking. All of these reveal personality without requiring you to share anything you would rather keep private. The goal is not oversharing. The goal is moving beyond empty language. Now let us build a powerful practice routine for this chapter. Choose one question each day. Do not choose 10. Choose one. For example, what kind of life would make me feel successful? Speak for 1 minute, then listen. Ask, did I give only general statements? Did I explain why? Did I include one real example? Did my personal values appear? Did I say something that sounds like me rather than something anyone could say? Then answer again. You may begin. Success means having a good job. Second attempt. For me, success is less about having an impressive job and more about having enough control over my time and finances that I am not constantly living under pressure. I still want meaningful work, but I do not want success to require sacrificing everything else that gives life value. The second answer contains identity. Try another question. What do I value in friendship? First, honesty. Second, for me, honesty matters, but I also value consistency. Someone can say all the right things, but I pay more attention to whether their behavior remains the same when there is nothing to gain. Again, simple vocabulary, deeper expression. Another, what is one thing I have changed my mind about? You might discover an entire story. This practice is not only improving English, it is helping you become comfortable thinking aloud in English. That ability is essential. Real conversation rarely gives you time to prepare a polished paragraph. You discover your own answer while speaking. The more often you practice that process, the more naturally your personality survives in English. You can also practice the 3-layer personality answer. Layer 1, what you think. Layer 2, why you think it. Layer 3, what experience taught you that? Question. Do you think people should take risks? Layer 1. I think some risk is necessary. Layer 2. Because if you only choose situations where success is guaranteed, your options become very limited. Layer 3. I learned this when I avoided an opportunity because I was afraid of failing. Later, I realized that losing the opportunity bothered me more than the possibility of failure. Now the answer belongs to you. Question. Is being alone healthy? Layer 1. I think it can be. Layer 2. Because being alone gives you space to understand what you actually think without constantly reacting to other people. Layer 3. I noticed this when I started spending more quiet time by myself and realized how many decisions I had been making only because they were normal around me. Again, your experience gives weight to your opinion. Another thing you should practice is voice and emotion. You can have excellent words and still sound disconnected if every sentence uses the same tone. Say, I was really excited when I heard the news. If your voice sounds flat, the language and emotion are fighting each other. You do not need theatrical performance. Simply allow the feeling to influence the delivery. If you are describing relief, let the sentence soften. If you are describing surprise, allow some energy. If you are making a serious point, slow down. If you are telling something funny, do not crush the humor under nervousness. This helps the listener feel what the words mean. Record yourself saying, I cannot believe that happened. First say it as surprise, then disbelief, then anger, then amusement. Same words, different meaning. This teaches you that expression is larger than vocabulary. Your voice is part of your English. Your face is part of your English. Your pauses are part of your English. Your emphasis is part of your English. As you become more comfortable, let these things carry meaning naturally. You are not trying to perform English. You are trying to stop hiding behind it. This chapter has one central message. Your English should not erase your personality. It should reveal it. Do not settle for, it was good, when you know what was good. Do not settle for, it was bad, when you know exactly what bothered you. Do not say, I agree, when you have a reason worth explaining. Do not say, I don't know, when the truth is that you need a moment to organize a complicated thought. Do not say, my English is not enough, every time one word disappears. Use the English you already have to go deeper. Say, what surprised me was, what matters to me is, the reason I feel this way is, I used to think, but now, what bothers me is. For me, I am not completely sure, but the part people often miss is, what I learned from that was. These phrases create doors. Walk through them with your own experiences. Your goal is not to sound like another learner who memorized the same expressions. Your goal is to build enough freedom that the English becomes yours. There will come a moment when you tell a story and forget that you are practicing English because you are more interested in the story than the grammar. There will come a moment when someone disagrees and your first thought is not, which tense should I use, but, I want to explain why I see this differently. There will come a moment when something makes you laugh and your reaction appears in English before you prepare it. There will come a moment when you describe something important and realize that the person listening has finally understood not only the words, but the person behind them. Those moments are signs of progress, because the highest level of expression is not having the largest vocabulary. It is being able to remain yourself while using another language. So today, stop asking only, how can I improve my English? Ask a deeper question, how can I make my English sound more like me? Then practice from there. Talk about what you actually care about. Give your real opinion. Explain your reasons. Include your reactions. Tell the detail that stayed in your memory. Show the difference between what you expected and what happened. Admit when you are uncertain. Explain when your opinion changed. Let humor appear when it comes naturally. Let emotion enter your voice. And stop believing that simple English cannot carry a complex person. It can. Simple English can carry disappointment, gratitude, regret, humor, ambition, doubt, wisdom, affection, frustration, courage, and almost every other human experience when you learn how to develop the meaning. Your personality does not require perfect grammar. It requires permission. Permission to keep talking after the first safe sentence. Permission to explain something twice. Permission to choose simple words for a deep thought. Permission to sound uncertain when uncertainty is honest. Permission to disagree. Permission to react. Permission to tell the story your way. Permission to let the person listening meet more than your English level. Because the real goal of Express Yourself in English is not to create a more impressive speaker. It is to remove the language barrier between the person you are inside and the person other people can finally hear. And when that barrier begins to disappear, something beautiful happens. English stops feeling like a smaller version of your voice. It starts becoming another place where your full voice can live. Chapter 6. Express difficult ideas without making your English difficult. One of the biggest traps in English begins when your thoughts become more intelligent than the sentences you feel confident producing. You want to explain something complicated. Maybe you want to describe why a relationship changed, why you disagree with an important decision, why success means something different to you now, or why a problem cannot be solved with one simple answer. The thought inside your mind contains several layers, and because the thought feels deep, you assume the English must also be difficult. So you start searching for advanced vocabulary. You try to build a long sentence. You think about grammar while speaking. You reject the simple words because they do not sound impressive enough. And somewhere in that process, the clear thought you wanted to express becomes harder and harder to say. This chapter will teach you one of the most important skills in expressive English. A complicated thought does not need complicated English. It needs clear structure. That difference can completely change the way you speak. Imagine someone asks, "Why do some people stay in jobs they do not enjoy?" Inside your mind, you may have a complex answer involving money, responsibility, fear, family expectations, uncertainty, confidence, and future risk. Because the thought is complicated, you may freeze before saying anything, but you do not need one perfect sentence containing everything. Start with the center of the thought. Sometimes people stay because leaving feels more dangerous than staying. That sentence is simple, but the idea is strong. Now explain. They may dislike the job, but they know how much money they will receive every month. If they leave, they may not know when they will find another opportunity. Then add another layer. Family responsibilities can make that uncertainty even harder to accept. Then give your conclusion. So the person may not be staying because they love the job. They may be staying because stability feels more important at that stage of life. You have expressed a complex psychological idea without complicated grammar. This is the skill. Do not try to carry the whole mountain in one sentence. Move one piece at a time. Many learners believe advanced English means longer sentences. But long sentences are useful only when you can control them. A simple sentence that clearly carries one part of your meaning is more powerful than a sophisticated sentence that loses the listener halfway through. Suppose you want to say, although technological advancements have considerably improved convenience, excessive dependence on them may gradually reduce our ability to tolerate boredom and maintain concentration. That sentence is possible. But if it feels heavy during conversation, simplify it. Technology makes many parts of life easier. But there is also a problem. When we become used to constant entertainment and instant answers, it can become harder to sit quietly and focus on one thing for a long time. Same idea. More natural speaking. The intelligence did not disappear when the language became simpler. In fact, the idea may now be easier to understand. That is what powerful communication does. It removes unnecessary difficulty between the thought and the listener. From now on, when you have a complex idea, do not first ask, "What advanced vocabulary do I need?" Ask, "What is the main point?" Find that first. Suppose your thought is about confidence. Your mind contains many ideas. Confidence is affected by experience. People often wait to feel ready. Avoidance increases fear. Practice builds familiarity. Mistakes become less frightening through exposure. That is a lot. Find the main point. Confidence often comes after action. not before it. Now the road becomes clear. Explain. Many people wait until they feel confident before trying something difficult. But if you always avoid the situation that scares you, your mind never gets evidence that you can handle it. Add an example. An English learner may wait until their speaking becomes perfect before joining conversations. But because they avoid conversations, the skill never gets enough real practice. Then conclude. So sometimes confidence is not the thing that allows you to begin. Beginning is what slowly creates the confidence. That is a deep thought expressed with accessible English. This is exactly what you should practice. Take complicated ideas and discover their simple center. Another useful technique is to break your thought into 4 parts. What do I believe? Why do I believe it? What example shows it? What does it mean? Suppose someone asks, do you think failure makes people stronger? What do you believe? I do not think failure automatically makes people stronger. Why? Because a person can fail many times without learning anything if they never examine what went wrong. Example? Someone can repeat the same unhealthy relationship pattern for years and simply blame every other person. Meaning? Failure becomes useful when it changes the way you think or behave. That answer sounds thoughtful because the structure is strong. You are not throwing advanced vocabulary at the listener. You are building logic. This is one reason structure matters more than vocabulary in deeper conversations. A listener can follow simple words when the relationships are clear, but even advanced words become confusing when the ideas are poorly organized. Suppose you want to explain why money matters but is not everything. A weak, complex answer might jump everywhere. Money is important because life, happiness, stress, opportunities, family, and people are different. And sometimes money is not everything, but sometimes it is. The ideas are all present, but they are fighting each other. Organize them. Begin. I think money matters enormously when someone does not have enough for basic security. Explain. If you are worried about food, housing, medical expenses, or debt, money affects your peace almost every day. Now introduce the other side. But once those basic pressures are under control, more money does not automatically solve every human problem. Give examples. It cannot guarantee healthy relationships, meaningful work, good health, or a peaceful mind. Conclusion. So I think money is extremely important, but its power has limits. Clear, balanced, expressive. This is how you handle ideas containing 2 truths at the same time. You do not need to choose one extreme. Many complex thoughts are difficult precisely because both sides contain truth. English gives you useful ways to express this. I agree with the idea, but I think there is an important limit. Both things can be true at the same time. The problem is not the idea itself. The problem is how far we take it. It depends on what situation we are talking about. There is a difference between. The important distinction is, these phrases help you organize nuance. Suppose someone says, working hard always leads to success. Instead of only agreeing or disagreeing, you might say, I think hard work matters, but there is a difference between working hard and working effectively. A person can spend years putting enormous effort into the wrong direction. Effort becomes more powerful when it is combined with learning, feedback, and good decisions. Simple language, complex distinction. Another example, people should always forgive. You might say, I think forgiveness and trust are different. You may stop carrying anger towards someone without allowing them to return to the same position in your life. Forgiveness can be about your peace, while trust has to be rebuilt through behavior. Again, the power comes from separating 2 ideas that people often mix together. This gives you another important speaking tool. When a topic feels complicated, look for the difference between 2 similar things: confidence and arrogance, forgiveness and trust, being busy and being productive, being alone and being lonely, knowing English and being able to use English, listening and understanding, hearing criticism and accepting disrespect, saving money and being afraid to spend anything, working hard and working intelligently. When you learn to explain distinctions, your English immediately becomes more expressive. Take, being alone is not the same as being lonely. Explain, a person can be alone and feel peaceful because they chose the time for themselves. Loneliness is different. You can even feel lonely in a room full of people if you do not feel connected to anyone. This is strong English because the meaning is precise. Try. Being confident is not the same as being certain. A confident person can admit they do not know something. Confidence means you trust your ability to handle the situation, not that you believe you are always right. Again, clear distinction. Another powerful method is to use cause and consequence. Some thoughts feel complicated because they contain a chain. One thing happens that creates another problem, that changes behavior, that produces a result. Instead of trying to place the complete chain into one sentence, show each step. Suppose you want to explain why learners become silent in English conversations. Start. A learner becomes afraid of making mistakes. Next. Because of that fear, they begin checking every sentence before speaking. Then, that makes their responses slower. Then, when they notice the conversation moving faster than they can respond, they become even more nervous. Result. Eventually, they may decide that their English is poor. Even though much of the problem began with excessive self-monitoring, now the listener can follow the complete process. You can use this pattern for many topics. Why do people procrastinate? A task feels uncomfortable, so the person delays it. The delay gives temporary relief. Because that relief feels good, the brain learns to avoid the task again next time. Eventually, the unfinished work becomes even more stressful. Why do people lose motivation? They begin with high expectations. Progress is slower than expected. Because they cannot see quick results, they feel that their effort is not working. Then they practice less, which makes progress even slower. Cause and consequence thinking helps you speak about deeper ideas without losing yourself. Another excellent structure is situation, problem, response, result, lesson. This works especially well when explaining personal experiences. Suppose someone asks, "What did you learn from your biggest English mistake?" Situation. I used to spend most of my time studying silently. Problem. I understood a lot, but when someone spoke to me, I could not respond at the same level. Response. I started answering questions aloud every day, even when nobody was listening. Result. My speaking became faster because my mouth was finally practicing the language my mind already understood. Lesson. That taught me that understanding a skill and performing it are not the same thing. This is not only storytelling, it is explaining insight through experience. That is one of the strongest forms of expression. You should also learn to use examples when an abstract idea feels too difficult. Suppose you want to explain. People sometimes confuse attention with care. That is abstract. Give an example. Someone may message you constantly, but that does not automatically mean they care deeply about you. Sometimes people want attention because they are bored, lonely, or need reassurance. Real care becomes clearer through consistent behavior, especially when there is nothing immediate to gain. The example makes the concept real. Suppose you want to explain, fluency is contextual. That sounds academic. Say, someone may speak easily about their job because they use the same vocabulary every day, but struggle badly when the conversation suddenly moves to politics, medicine, or technology. Their English did not disappear. They simply have less experience expressing themselves in that area. The meaning becomes visible. This is why examples are such a powerful learner tool. When you feel yourself becoming abstract, ask, "Can I show this with a real situation?" A real example often explains what 3 complicated sentences cannot. Another powerful way to express deep thoughts is comparison. Suppose you want to explain why speaking practice matters. You might say, learning English only through reading is like learning how to swim by studying the movements from a book. The information can help, but at some point your body has to enter the water. Simple comparison. Clear meaning. Suppose you want to explain why one mistake should not destroy a conversation. A mistake in one sentence is like taking one wrong step while walking. You correct the direction and continue. You do not return home because one step was imperfect. Comparisons help your listener understand something unfamiliar through something familiar. You can practice creating them. English vocabulary is like, confidence is like, a habit is like, trust is like, learning is like. Do not worry about creating perfect poetry. The comparison only needs to make the meaning clearer. For example, vocabulary is like money in a bank account. Having a lot is useful, but it does not help much if you cannot access it when you need it. That explains passive versus active vocabulary beautifully. Another area where learners make their English unnecessarily difficult is trying to translate expressions exactly from their own language. Your first language may express one emotional or cultural idea through a sentence that does not fit naturally into English. When that happens, do not fight for exact words. Translate the meaning, not the shape. Ask, what am I really trying to communicate? Perhaps the original thought means, I respect this person because they never make me feel small when I ask for help. You do not need the exact same structure your first language uses. Say, what I respect about him is that he never makes people feel stupid for not knowing something. Meaning delivered. Perhaps you want to express, I feel hurt because I always support this person, but they disappear when I need them. Say exactly that. Do not search for one advanced idiom if you can already communicate the truth. This makes English feel more direct. Another major improvement comes when you stop trying to speak at the same complexity level as your private thoughts. Your internal thought may arrive as one giant idea containing several connections at once. Fai-min-humage is different. The listener needs those connections one after another. Imagine you are thinking, I want to leave this job because I no longer feel challenged, but I am worried about money, and I also feel guilty because the team depends on me, although I know staying only because of guilt is probably unhealthy. That is a lot to carry. Break it. I am thinking about leaving my job. Pause. The main reason is that I no longer feel like I am growing there. Next layer. But leaving is difficult because I am worried about financial stability. Another. I also feel guilty because several people on the team depend on me. Conclusion. At the same time, I know guilt alone is probably not a good reason to remain somewhere forever. Now the listener can actually follow your conflict. This is what expressive speaking should feel like. You are not reducing the idea, you are unfolding it. One clear piece at a time. Another skill is learning when to slow down. Complex thoughts require more thinking time. Learners often rush because they believe pauses make them sound weak, but thoughtful pauses can make you sound more controlled. If someone asks, do you think people can really change? You do not need to answer immediately. You can say, that is difficult because I think the answer depends on what we mean by change. Pause. Then continue. I think people can change habits and behavior, but only when they become honest about what keeps producing the old pattern. Wanting a different result is not enough if everything else remains the same. That short thinking space helps you organize the idea. Useful phrases can give you natural time. That is an interesting question. I think there are two parts to that. The first thing I would say is, it depends on what we mean by. I have mixed feelings about that. The simple answer is yes, but the longer answer is more complicated. These phrases are not filler when they actually organize thought. They help you enter difficult ideas calmly. For example, is social media bad for society? The simple answer is that it can be, but I think the real issue is how it is designed and how people use it. Now you have created direction. You are not desperately searching for a complete answer. Another technique is reducing an abstract idea into a question. Suppose the topic is success. Instead of trying to define success immediately, asks, successful in what way? Money, relationships, freedom, health, contribution, status? Once you identify the dimension, the answer becomes easier. You might say, if success only means income, then one person may look very successful. But if success also includes health, relationships, and control over your time, the picture may be completely different. This creates depth through questions. You can use this with many broad words. What do we mean by confidence? What kind of freedom? What kind of intelligence? What does better mean here? Better for whom? Better in the short term or long term? Is the problem the tool or the way people use it? These questions help you think clearly, and clear thinking produces clearer English. Another important learner habit is to separate fact, interpretation, and opinion. Suppose, my manager did not answer my message for 2 days. That is the fact. He does not respect me. That is an interpretation. I think managers should respond more quickly when something is urgent. That is an opinion. When these categories become mixed, your explanation may sound confusing. Separating them makes you more precise. For example, my manager did not answer my message for 2 days. I felt ignored, although I cannot know exactly why he did not reply. My concern is that when something is urgent, the team needs a clearer communication system. That sounds balanced and mature. You are expressing emotion without pretending your interpretation is automatically fact. Try another. My friend canceled our plans 3 times. Fact. I started feeling that spending time with me was not important to them. Personal interpretation. I think if someone repeatedly cannot meet, it is better to be honest instead of making plans they are unlikely to keep. Opinion. This kind of structure allows English to carry sophisticated thinking without sophisticated vocabulary. Another powerful skill is explaining degrees instead of speaking in extremes. Learners often say, always, never, everyone, no one, completely, terrible, perfect, but your real thought may be more nuanced. Instead of, social media is bad, say, social media becomes harmful for me when I use it without a purpose. Instead of, people are selfish, say, some people become more self-focused when they feel threatened or insecure. Instead of, I hate meetings, say, I dislike meetings that do not have a clear purpose. Instead of, grammar is useless, say, I think grammar is useful, but spending all your study time on grammar can leave your speaking underdeveloped. This makes your English more accurate. And accuracy of meaning is more important than dramatic language. You should also practice explaining conditions. Many opinions are true only under certain conditions. For example, working from home is better. Maybe not always. You could say, working from home can be better when someone has a quiet environment and work that does not require constant face-to-face collaboration. Now your opinion is more precise. Studying alone is effective. Under what conditions? Studying alone can be effective if you know what to practice and regularly test yourself through real speaking. Taking risks is good. Under what conditions? I think taking risks can be useful when the possible loss is something you can recover from. This is the language of mature thinking. You are learning to say not only what you believe, but when you believe it applies. Another excellent exercise is taking one extreme statement and making it more accurate. Statement: money cannot buy happiness. More accurate: money cannot guarantee happiness, but having enough money can remove many sources of stress. Statement: failure makes you stronger. More accurate: failure can make you stronger if you understand it and change something afterward. Statement: technology makes people lazy. More accurate: some technology removes effort from tasks, but whether that makes someone lazy depends on how they use the time and convenience it creates. This practice teaches both critical thinking and expressive English. Another skill is learning to explain why your opinion changed. This is especially powerful because it naturally creates depth. For example, I used to think speaking English quickly meant speaking English fluently. But I noticed that some people speak very quickly while their ideas are difficult to follow. So now I think fluency is more about expressing ideas smoothly and clearly than simply producing words at high speed. This structure is easy and powerful. I used to think, then I noticed, now I believe. Try. I used to think confidence meant not caring what other people thought. Then I realized that completely ignoring feedback can become another problem. Now I think confidence means listening to useful opinions without allowing every opinion to control you. This is deep expression with simple English. Another useful structure is, at first, then, eventually. This helps you explain development. At first I avoided speaking because mistakes embarrassed me. Then I started recording myself privately. Eventually, I became comfortable enough to use the same language in conversations. Or, at first I thought the job was perfect because everything was new. Then I began noticing that I had very little control over my time. Eventually, that became more important to me than the salary. Time creates structure. Structure creates clarity. Another mistake learners make is trying to include every detail. Expressing yourself fully does not mean saying everything you know. It means choosing the details that help the listener understand the meaning. Suppose you are explaining why a meeting went badly. You do not need to describe every person, every chair, every email, and every minute. Choose what matters. The meeting went badly because nobody was clear about who had the final decision. We spent most of the time repeating different opinions, but nobody had authority to choose a direction. That is enough. Ask, what does the listener need in order to understand my point? This keeps your English focused. You can practice by telling the same story in 60 seconds, 30 seconds, and 15 seconds. Long version, give context, problem, action, result. Shorter version, keep only what matters. Very short version, give the central meaning. For example, 60 seconds about a difficult presentation might include your preparation, nervousness, forgotten words, recovery, and lesson. 30 seconds, I prepared well, but when I saw everyone looking at me, I became nervous and forgot part of the introduction. After the first minute, I relaxed and completed the presentation. It taught me that the beginning is usually the hardest part for me. 15 seconds. I became nervous at the beginning and forgot part of what I planned, but I recovered and finished. The experience showed me that I can continue even after a bad start. This exercise gives you control over detail. That is an advanced speaking skill. Sometimes you need a long explanation. Sometimes you need one clear sentence. Expressive speakers can choose. Another valuable practice is explaining something difficult as though you were speaking to a younger learner, not because the listener is unintelligent, but because it forces you to remove unnecessary complexity. Choose a concept. Discipline. Explain simply. Discipline means doing something because it matters, even when you do not feel like doing it. Compound improvement. Small improvements can become powerful when they continue for a long time. Emotional maturity. It means being able to feel strong emotions without allowing every emotion to control your behavior. If you can explain something simply, you probably understand it. This practice strengthens both thinking and speaking. You should also stop apologizing for simple vocabulary. Learners sometimes produce a clear sentence and then think, "That sounds too basic." But ask yourself, did the listener understand exactly what I meant? If yes, the sentence did its job. Compare. I experienced considerable dissatisfaction due to the inconsistency between his verbal commitments and subsequent behavioral patterns. With, I became disappointed because he kept promising one thing and doing another. Which one would you rather hear in a normal conversation? Simple does not mean childish. Simple can mean precise. The most powerful speakers often use ordinary words to express extraordinary ideas. What matters is how those words are connected. Another excellent habit is replacing abstract nouns with actions. Instead of, "There was a communication failure," say, "People were not telling each other what had changed." Instead of, "There was a lack of cooperation," say, "The teams were working separately and were not sharing information." Instead of, "I experienced a loss of motivation," say, "I slowly stopped feeling excited about the goal." Actions are often easier to imagine and easier to say. This can make your English more natural. You can also turn a difficult concept into a small scene. Instead of saying, "He is manipulative," describe, "He often makes people feel guilty when they do not give him what he wants." Instead of, "She is supportive. She listens when I have a problem and helps me think without trying to control the decision." Instead of, "The workplace is chaotic. Priorities change every few hours, different people give conflicting instructions, and nobody knows which task should come first." The listener sees the meaning. That is often stronger than the label. Another important skill is knowing how to return to your main point after giving detail. Long explanations become confusing when the listener forgets why the examples were introduced. Use phrases such as, "So the main point is, that is why I believe. What this showed me was, the reason this matters is, ultimately." For example, "I used to study vocabulary for hours, and I could recognize hundreds of words while reading. But during conversations, those words rarely appeared. I realized I had practiced recognition much more than retrieval. So the main point is that knowing a word when you see it is different from being able to produce it when you need it." The final sentence gathers the explanation. Practice this whenever you speak for more than a minute. Give the listener a clear landing. Another powerful exercise for this chapter is the Deep Idea, Simple English Challenge. Choose one serious question each day. What makes someone trustworthy? Can people really change? Why do people stay in unhealthy situations? What is the difference between confidence and arrogance? Does money create freedom? What makes a friendship last? Why do people fear failure? Give yourself 2 rules. Use vocabulary you already know. Make the thought as clear as possible. For example, what makes someone trustworthy? You might say, "For me, trust grows when a person behaves consistently." Anyone can say the right thing once, but I pay attention to what someone repeatedly does. I also think honesty matters most when telling the truth is uncomfortable. If a person is honest only when honesty is easy, I do not know how much that tells me about their character. That is excellent expressive practice. Another, can people change? I think people can change, but wanting to change and actually changing are different. Real change usually requires different behavior repeated for a long time. If someone keeps making the same choices but says they are a different person, I would trust the behavior more than the words. Strong thought. Manageable English. Do this regularly and you will notice that deep conversation stops feeling like a vocabulary competition. You begin trusting your ability to build meaning. That confidence matters, because one reason learners simplify themselves too much is fear. They think, what if I cannot finish this idea? What if the grammar becomes complicated? What if I forget an important word? So they never begin. But after practicing the techniques in this chapter, you have another option. Begin with the main point. Use simple sentences. Separate the ideas. Give one reason. Add an example. Clarify the distinction. Explain the consequence. Return to the conclusion. If one word disappears, describe it. If one sentence becomes too difficult, divide it. If your explanation becomes confusing, return to the main point. You always have somewhere to go. That is real expressive confidence. You are not confident because you know exactly which words will appear. You are confident because you know how to build the thought even when the wording changes. And that is far more useful. From now on, whenever you catch yourself thinking, "This idea is too difficult for my English," do not immediately abandon it. Ask, what is the simplest true sentence I can say first? Start there. Perhaps, I have mixed feelings about this. I think two things are happening. The main problem is, there is an important difference between "I agree with" part of it. The reason this is complicated is, that first clear sentence gives you a platform, then build one piece, one reason, one example, one distinction, one conclusion. That is how difficult thoughts become speakable. Remember, your listener cannot see the complete thought inside your mind. They need you to unfold it, and unfolding takes time. You do not need to throw the entire idea at them in one impressive sentence. Let the meaning arrive gradually. Let the language remain clear. Let the examples do some of the work. Let simple words carry complicated truths. Because expressive English is not about making your language sound more difficult than your thought. It is about making your thought easier for another human being to enter. When you can do that, something important changes. You stop feeling that English is reducing your intelligence. You realize that you can discuss serious ideas with vocabulary you already control. You can explain disagreement without attacking. You can describe mixed emotions without one perfect adjective. You can discuss causes, consequences, conditions, distinctions, and personal values. You can take an idea that once felt impossible and build it one clear sentence at a time. And that is when English begins becoming a real thinking language for you. Not because every sentence is advanced, but because even your deepest thoughts finally have a clear road from your mind to another person. Chapter 7. Build an English voice that actually sounds like you. There comes a point in English where learning more words is no longer the biggest problem. You already know enough to explain many things. You can answer questions, give opinions, tell simple stories, and understand far more than you could before. But one question still matters. Does your English actually sound like you? Because fluency is not only being able to produce sentences, it is being able to carry your personality, opinions, emotions, humor, uncertainty, and real thoughts into another language without feeling that half of you disappears. Imagine someone asks, "What kind of life do you want?" A safe English answer might be, "I want a good job, money, and a happy life." Nothing is wrong with it, but maybe your real answer is, "I want enough stability that money is not controlling every decision I make, but I also want enough freedom that my whole life does not become work. I want meaningful relationships, time for myself, and work that gives me a reason to keep growing." That answer sounds more like a person. Your English voice begins developing when you stop giving the answer you think an English learner is supposed to give and start expressing the answer you actually believe. That means you need to practice English with real questions. Not only, what is your favorite color? What did you eat today? What is your hobby? Those questions can help beginners, but if you want deeper speaking ability, your practice needs deeper thoughts. Ask yourself, what makes me trust someone? What kind of behavior makes me lose respect for a person? What does success mean to me now? What is something I believed 5 years ago that I no longer believe? What kind of life would make me feel peaceful? What is one mistake that changed the way I think? Then speak. Do not prepare the perfect answer. Discover the answer in English. That is important because real conversations are not memorized. Sometimes you do not know exactly what you think until you begin explaining it. Suppose you ask yourself, what makes a person strong? You might begin, I think a strong person is someone who can handle difficult situations. Then something deeper appears. But actually, I do not think strength means never struggling. Sometimes strength means being able to admit that something is difficult without allowing it to completely control you. Now you are not simply practicing vocabulary. You are learning to think aloud in English. That is one of the strongest exercises you can do. Another part of building your English voice is learning to stop copying complete sentences forever. Imitation is useful at the beginning. You hear a natural phrase, repeat it, learn the rhythm, and make the structure familiar. But eventually, you have to make the language yours. Suppose you learn, "What matters most to me is excellent." Now use it with your own meaning. What matters most to me in friendship is consistency. What matters most to me when learning English is being able to use what I learn. What matters most to me at work is knowing that my effort is leading somewhere. The phrase came from English. The thought came from you. That is exactly what you want. Do the same with, "What surprised me was, the main reason is, I used to think, but now, the difficult part is, what I learned from that was, I understand that point, but." These structures become powerful when they begin carrying your own experiences. Another skill is learning to speak even when your opinion is not completely finished. You may be asked, do you think people need university to become successful? Perhaps you have mixed feelings. You do not need to pretend certainty. Say, I am not completely sure because I think it depends on the field. Some careers require formal education, but in other areas, skill and experience may matter more. So I do not think one answer fits everyone. That is natural. Your English voice should be able to say, I don't know yet. I have mixed feelings. I changed my mind. I agree with part of that. I need more information before deciding. Those sentences are not weak. They show control. Real people are not certain about everything. Another powerful practice is learning to tell the same story your way. Two people can experience the same event and tell completely different stories because they notice different things. Imagine you attended an important meeting. One person may say, the meeting lasted 2 hours and we discussed the new project. You may say, what I remember most is how nervous I was before speaking. I had prepared everything, but when everyone looked at me, I forgot the first sentence. After that, I slowed down, explained the idea in simpler words, and the rest became much easier. Now the story belongs to you. The event is not interesting only because of what happened. It becomes interesting because of what you noticed and what it meant. Whenever you tell a story, try adding one of these. What surprised me? What worried me? What did I expect? What was different from what I expected? What did I realize afterward? For example, I thought the interview would be difficult because of the questions, but the hardest part was actually controlling my nervousness. The questions were not impossible. I was making them feel harder because I was afraid of giving the wrong answer. That is reflection. And reflection makes your English sound mature. You should also build your voice through everyday opinions. Choose one ordinary topic and refuse to give a generic answer. Question: do you like working from home? Instead of, yes, it is good, say, I like the freedom, especially because I do not lose time traveling. But I also notice that when I work alone for too many days, my energy becomes lower. For me, a mixture would probably be better. Question: do you like social media? Instead of, yes, sometimes, say, I like it when I use it for a purpose, but I dislike how easily it can steal attention. I can open my phone for one useful thing and suddenly realize 20 minutes have disappeared. Question: do you enjoy learning alone? I do, especially when I need deep concentration. But I also need real conversation because studying alone cannot show me how I react when another person speaks unexpectedly. These answers sound more like real conversation. Your voice also becomes stronger when you learn to use English for spontaneous explanation. Choose an object near you. Do not simply name it. Explain something about it for 30 seconds. Your phone, your desk, a book, a window, a chair. Perhaps, this desk looks ordinary, but I actually work better here because there are fewer things around me. When my workspace becomes crowded, I notice that my attention becomes crowded too. Now you are practicing personal expression from an ordinary object. Another excellent exercise is to choose one moment from your day and explain it as though someone genuinely wanted to understand your experience. Do not say, my day was busy. Explain, my morning started calmly, but after lunch several things became urgent at the same time. The most frustrating part was that I had planned to finish one important task, but I spent most of the afternoon responding to smaller problems. That practice teaches you to turn life into language. And that is exactly what you need. You do not want English that appears only when a textbook gives you a topic. You want English that follows you through your real day. When something annoys you, describe it. When something surprises you, explain why. When you change your mind, say what changed it. When you enjoy something, explain what part you enjoyed. When you disagree, explain the reason calmly. When you do not understand your own feeling yet, try describing it. This is how English slowly becomes connected to your real identity. There is also one habit you should stop. Stop judging every sentence immediately after you say it. If you speak and your first thought is, "That grammar was probably wrong. That word sounded strange. My pronunciation was bad," you move your attention away from communication and back towards self-monitoring. Correction is useful, but not every second. During speaking practice, sometimes give yourself one rule. Finish the meaning first, correct later. Imagine you say, "Yesterday I go to," you notice the mistake. If you can correct it smoothly, say, "Yesterday I went to," good, then continue. Do not spend the next 30 seconds thinking about the mistake. Your job is still to finish the story. This is important because expressive speaking requires momentum. If every small error becomes an emergency, your real thought never gets enough space. Another powerful practice is the 3-minute voice exercise. Choose one question about your own life. Speak for 1 minute, then answer the same question again but add more detail. Then answer once more, trying to sound clearer and more natural rather than more advanced. For example, what kind of people do I enjoy being around? First attempt: I like calm and honest people. Second attempt: I enjoy being around calm people because I do not like feeling that every conversation has to become a competition. Third attempt: I think the people I feel most comfortable around are calm, honest, and easy to talk to. I especially like people who can disagree without making the conversation personal. For me, that creates trust. Each attempt gets closer to your real voice. You can do the same with, what do I want from my future? What have I learned about friendship? What makes me lose motivation? What is one habit I want to change? What does confidence mean to me? Do this regularly and you will notice something changing. Your English will stop sounding like answers you prepared for a lesson. It will begin sounding like thoughts you actually wanted to share. That is the destination of this entire audiobook. Not perfect English, not the most difficult English, not English designed to impress someone. English that can carry you, your opinions, your stories, your humor, your uncertainty, your experiences, your values, your mistakes, your changing mind, your real personality. And there is one final rule I want you to remember. Whenever you feel that your English sounds smaller than your thoughts, do not immediately look for more vocabulary. First ask, have I actually finished expressing the idea? Maybe the words are already there. Maybe the reason is missing. Maybe the example is missing. Maybe your personal reaction is missing. Maybe you stopped after the first sentence because it felt safe. Stay with the thought a little longer. Explain what you mean. Say it another way. Use simple words. Give the example. Add the part that matters to you. Because the highest level of speaking freedom is not being able to say, "I can speak English." It is being able to say, "English can carry me." When your English can carry your thoughts without shrinking them, your opinions without flattening them, your emotions without hiding them, and your personality without replacing it, you are no longer simply using another language. You are finally expressing yourself through it. You began this audiobook with a painful feeling. You know what you mean, but English makes the thought come out smaller. Now you know that the solution is not always more vocabulary. Sometimes you need to expand the thought. Sometimes you need to say it another way. Sometimes you need to describe the word you forgot. Sometimes you need to add the reason, the detail, the example, the emotion, and your real opinion. And sometimes the most powerful English is not difficult English at all. It is simple English carrying a complete thought. So from today, do not stop at, "It was good," "I don't like it," "I can't explain." Stay with the idea a little longer. Tell us why. Tell us what happened. Tell us what surprised you. Tell us how it affected you. Tell us what you really mean. Because fluency is not proving how many difficult words you know. Fluency is having enough control over English to let another person enter your thoughts. There will still be moments when a word disappears. There will still be sentences that do not come out perfectly. But now you have another response. Instead of thinking, "I cannot say this," you can think, Give me a moment, I will find another way to express it. That is freedom, that is confidence. And that is the English voice you are building. If this audiobook helped you, subscribe to English Mindset Academy and in the comments write, "My thoughts will no longer become smaller in English." Keep practicing until English no longer hides the person inside you. This was Express Yourself in English, published by English Mindset Academy. And remember, your thoughts are already worth expressing. Now make your English strong enough to carry them.